Jason folded instantly, turning on his heel to follow Ava. He walked away without a second thought. If he had to choose between a contractual marriage and a real one, he'd take the contract every time. Clara watched his hasty retreat, a faint, beautiful curve gracing her lips. Little thing, so you can be shy after all. He certainly hadn't been shy when he'd called her his wife a few moments ago. Interesting. Keep an eye on him, she said, her voice dropping back to its usual icy temperature as Jason disappeared from view. If he runs, you know the consequences. Yes, ma'am. Another of her assistants nodded sharply, but then hesitated. Ms. Sterling, do you really believe he stabbed Ms. Lynn? The assistant had seen the wound. The amount of blood didn't look like a real stab wound, and Jason's acting hadn't been particularly convincing. Anyone paying attention could see he was hiding something. Should we investigate? What if he tries to hurt you in the future? She added, her concern for Clara overriding her fear. For years, they had watched her climb from being a bully member of the Sterling family to the powerhouse she was today. Her life had been hard enough. No need. Clara waved a dismissive finger. It doesn't matter who he liked before. From this day forward, he stays with the Sterlings. And he would like only her. Of course, she saw through his little act. But he had called her his wife. Wife. Fine. She let it slide this once. If he misbehaved again, she had plenty of ways to lock him by her side forever. When Clara Sterling set her sights on someone, no one in New York City could take them from her. Have someone bring back that chef my grandmother sent over last time. The boy kept saying he was hungry. As his contract wife, the least she could do was feed him. Besides, a full stomach gives you energy for other things. Right away, Ms. Sterling. I'll arrange it immediately, the assistant replied, her voice filled with excitement. Their boss, who had battled an eating disorder for years, was finally showing an interest in food again. This was a breakthrough. At a private hospital in Midtown, Brooke lay in a VIP room that smelled of antiseptic. Her face was a pale cameo nestled in a cloud of dark, wavy hair. A faint, triumphant smile played on her lips as she stared at the ceiling. A few nurses fussed around her, dressing the wound while casting curious glances her way. Her bodyguards looked even more bewildered. She'd been smiling like that for over 10 minutes. Was getting stabbed supposed to be a happy occasion? Ma'am, that punk Jason Miller had the nerve to hurt you. Should we take care of him for you? One of the bodyguards asked tentatively. Brooke's head snapped toward him, her eyes flashing. Who told you he hurt me? The bodyguard was dumbfounded. The only people in that room were Jason and Brooke. If it wasn't him, did she stab herself? If a single word of what happened today gets back to Mr. Lee, I'll make sure you never speak again. Brooke's voice was laced with ice as her gaze swept over the bodyguards. She could handle the rest of her family, but Mr. Lee had been her parents' most trusted advisor. If he found out she was hurt, Jason would be in real trouble. She picked up her phone and dialed Kinsey. Well, hello, Ms. Lynn. Weren't you supposed to be seeing Jason tonight? I heard you got hurt. Surprised you have time to call me. Kinsey's playful voice came through the line as soon as she picked up. As a member of NYC's elite, she heard everything, and fast. She'd been shocked to hear Jason had hurt Brooke. She'd half expected Brooke to have the boy killed. You talk too much, Brooke huffed. And to disappoint you, he didn't do this. That old hag Clara forced him. A soft, airy quality entered her tone, but Kinsey easily detected the smugness underneath. He couldn't bring himself to hurt me, so he cut his own arm and used the blood. No way, Kinsey said, a pang of disappointment hitting her. So he really does have a tragic backstory? She had hoped Jason was finally over Brooke. She'd even been planning on asking for his number. But he was in that deep. Why couldn't she find a man that devoted? Of course. Did you really think Brooke Lynn could lose? Brooke's satisfaction grew, her eyebrows arching prettily. Now, that woman has him locked up at the Sterling estate. But even if she cages his body, she'll never have his heart. He would come back to her, sooner or later. And I already have a plan to get him out. You're a doctor, right? Your family's practice handles the Sterling's medical needs, don't they? Go see him. For me. Brooke's voice was full of trust, as if it never occurred to her that Kinsey might have her own interest in Jason. Kinsey laughed. Are you sure you want me to go? Under the watchful eyes of New York's business titans, Jason Miller left the Hilton, got into Clara Sterling's car, and was driven back to the Sterling estate. Sir, we've arrived. During the drive, the bodyguards who had previously treated him with cool indifference were now so respectful they hardly dared to meet his eye. At the estate's entrance, a dozen maids and over 20 guards stood in neat lines, awaiting his return. As he stepped safely from the car, their faces were a mixture of shock, doubt, and astonishment. This one, This one actually made it back from the gala alive. A nervous energy rippled through the staff as they respectfully escorted Jason into the main villa. He felt a little uneasy. Why were they suddenly being so nice to him? Was this a trap? The moment he stepped through the front door and saw the 20-foot-long, silk-draped dining table, his unease vanished. The lavish table was covered with a breathtaking array of freshly prepared dishes. The aromas were so intoxicating they made his mouth water. He hadn't eaten a real meal all day. Ava, who had followed him in, looked just as surprised. She took out her phone and played a voice memo from Clara. "The late-night supper is ready. Take him to eat." Clara's voice was cool and detached. "If he doesn't like the menu, get a new chef." Those two simple sentences sent a shockwave through the assembled staff. Ms. Sterling had actually brought back the master chef her grandmother recommended, and this entire feast, she had ordered it specifically for Jason. "Do I have to wait for Clara to eat this?" Jason asked, his eyes glued to the food. Ava bit her lip, still in disbelief. "No, sir. This is all for you. Ms. Sterling's orders." She was utterly baffled. Could it really be because of that one piece of chocolate? No way. It couldn't be that simple. She specifically ordered this for me. If Ava couldn't believe it, Jason was doubly skeptical. He picked up a small slice of cake from the table and sniffed it cautiously. Was it poisoned? Was the she-devil trying to poison him? "Well, if it's for me, I'm eating." Jason decided to be bold. Seeing the stunned looks on everyone's faces actually reassured him. If that monster really wanted him dead, she probably wouldn't resort to something so crude. With that thought, he relaxed, picked up a knife and fork, and began to tear through the feast like a storm. Watching his calm demeanor, Ava suddenly felt that this young man was far more complex than he appeared. Ms. Sterling had dealt with Leo Miller today for his sake. Before long, that news would be all over New York. Their new Mr. Sterling was about to become very famous. While eating, Jason casually pressed the chip embedded in his skin. "Sprite, crisis averted on my end. Clara will probably be drawing up the marriage contract in the next day or two. Keep an eye on the news. Let me know the second you hear anything from Leo Miller's camp." He kept his voice low. He knew the Miller family wouldn't take this lying down. Sprite's voice immediately chirped back in his head. "You got it, boss." A vein throbbed in Jason's temple. Just as he finished eating, Ava got a message and left. Before she went, she gave him his instructions. "Sir, Ms. Sterling has urgent business at Sterling Corp tonight and probably won't be back. She'll return tomorrow to sign the marriage contract with you. Please find a room for yourself for the night." She glanced pointedly at the bracelet on his wrist, a flicker of reassurance in her eyes. It was equipped with a GPS tracker and various biometric sensors. If Jason wanted to run, he'd have to get that off first. After Ava left, Jason began to explore the massive villa. "Find a room for myself?" he muttered, taking in the estate's architecture. The place looked like it had been custom-built for a woman like Clara. Arched floor-to-ceiling windows with intricate reliefs, stained glass panels, and heavy, blood-red velvet curtains. Outside the windows, vibrant red roses climbed thorny vines up the stone walls. He wandered, admiring the Gothic splendor for a while. Half an hour later, he was breathing heavily, utterly shocked. This place was ridiculously huge. "Ugh, forget it. I need to sleep," he grumbled. His wound was starting to ache from all the walking, and he was exhausted. Recalling Ava's instructions to find any room, he simply opened the door in front of him. Without even turning on a light, he collapsed onto the bed and passed out. He didn't notice the few young maids cleaning down the hall, whose eyes went wide with terror when they saw which room he had entered. No way. Was this new guy that bold? That was Ms. Sterling's private bedroom. They weren't even allowed inside to clean. This guy had guts. Meanwhile, the name Jason Miller was spreading like wildfire through New York's high society. The formidable head of Sterling Corp, the ice queen of the business world, Clara Sterling, had a man. And not just any man, a legend who had survived by her side for more than 3 days. She had even taken down a scion of the Miller family for him. The doting was extreme. Suddenly, everyone in the city's elite circles wanted to know who this new Mr. Sterling was. Who was this man who had managed to tame the untamable Clara Sterling? Of course, many were scornful, placing bets on how many days Jason had left. As for Leo Miller, after Clara gave the order to take him upstate and lose him, he had been dragged away by her security. Her people were efficient, but Leo being hauled off in public didn't go unnoticed. Several witnesses had connections to Jason's uncle, Robert Miller, and the news traveled fast. Naturally, Robert wasn't about to let his son become wolf food. He immediately sent envoys to plead with the Sterlings while dispatching his own team to find Leo. In the end, Leo was recovered from Clara's people. After being stabbed twice, just before he was to be abandoned in the Adirondacks. When the rest of the Sterling clan learned that Clara had done all this for a man brought in for a contractual marriage, panic began to set in. Inside the Sterling court boardroom. "You brought him in?" Victor Sterling, Clara's father, slammed a file with Jason's information onto the table. His face was a thunderous mask as he glared at his son, Evan. "Dad," Leo Miller said the kid was a total nobody. Evan stammered, still kneeling on the floor. He'd spent most of the last 2 days on his knees. "A nobody? I think you're the nobody here." Victor was livid, flinging the file directly at Evan's face. "See for yourself. Now Clara's practically killed Leo Miller for him. You're the useless one. This Jason is anything but simple. Anyone who can survive under Clara's thumb is dangerous." He narrowed his eyes, a venomous look creeping into them. No, he absolutely could not allow this Jason to remain by Clara's side. How else was he supposed to install his own choice of son-in-law? This daughter of his, from his first wife, dead for over a decade, was too powerful, too ruthless. If she actually had a child, his own claim to the Sterling Empire would be lost forever. "Mr. Sterling is here. Sir, your father is waiting for you inside." At that moment, the respectful murmur of employees drifted from outside the boardroom. The sharp click-clack of high heels followed, and the doors swung open. Clara stood in the doorway, draped in a severe black trench coat that accentuated her poised, impossibly chic figure. An immediate, dead silence fell over the room. The woman's presence was so overwhelming that no one dared to even meet her gaze. Clara, however, merely cast a cold, mocking glance at her father and cousin. "I thought your time was better spent with your collection of mistresses," she said, her lips curling into a sneer. "You'd better have a good reason for calling me here." She glided into the room, her demeanor so chilling it felt like frost was creeping into the air. Even Ava held her breath. This was the transformation. The moment Clara was away from Jason, the terrifying, powerful head of the Sterling family returned, the woman all of New York feared. "Clara, do you have any idea what your actions against the Miller family will do to our reputation? How the street will see us?" Victor finally found his voice, forcing a tone of outrage as he slapped the file on the table again. "All for some worthless punk? You'd risk the Sterling stock price for him." Clara looked at him as if he'd said something utterly absurd. Since when does the Sterling family's reputation hinge on a man? Were the contractual husbands who had died before Jason all imaginary? Who I want and what I do for them is not up for debate by anyone in this city. Her face hardened, her eyes sweeping over Victor. "And if anyone dares to lay a hand on him, I won't hesitate to have them erased from New York entirely." The threat was undisguised, her expression filled with a deep-seated disgust. Though she had a reputation for cruelty, most of the men before Jason hadn't died by her hand. They had been sent to kill her, failed, and were silenced by their own employers. But this one was different. She had chosen him, and no one but her was allowed to touch a single hair on his head. "You're insane, Clara. How dare you speak to your father like that?" Victor felt his authority challenged and erupted in a blaze of fury. "Don't think I don't know about your little niece, Bianca, just back from Europe. She's gunning for your seat. And here you are, distracted by some boy toy? You'll regret this." For all his blustering, Victor didn't dare make a move against her. It was nothing more than impotent rage. Seeing him like this, Clara only let out a cold laugh. "Victor, you truly disgust me. And don't worry, Bianca has no interest in the scraps you're fighting for." She leaned back lazily against the chair, but her beautiful eyes were sharp with menace. "Since you're so keen on defending the Millers, you can use those few companies you managed to make amends. Send out the word. Effective today, management of all companies under Victor Sterling's purview will be transferred to Jason Miller. All profits will go to him as well." Her tone was playful, but anyone could see she was in a foul mood. Ava and the others in the room were stunned. Transfer to Mr. Jason's name. Even though Victor's holdings were minor compared to the main corporation, their total value was well over $100 million. "Clara, what are you doing? I absolutely forbid it." Victor shot to his feet, panic in his eyes. He'd only helped Leo because Robert Miller had paid him $10 million. And now Clara was giving all his companies to a contractual husband? But a decision made by Clara Sterling could not be changed by anyone in New York. That was an announcement, not a request. "You're in no position to refuse," she said coolly. "What can I say?" The little guy was unhappy. "You'd better pray he likes these companies, or else Leo Miller will still have to die." Clara let the words hang in the air, then turned and walked out of the office without a second glance. With the power she now wielded, no one could refuse her. "Clara, you get back here. Clara." Victor's roar of fury echoed behind her, so intense he nearly coughed up blood. Evan, look what you've done. It was Evan who had put him in touch with Robert Miller. He should have never taken that 10 million. What was he going to do? He had 6 mistresses to support, each one demanding tens of thousands a month in pocket money. Now that his companies were gone, where would he get the cash? Jason Miller. He ruined my plan. Victor seethed, grabbing the photo of Jason from the file and ripping it to shreds. Get a message to Robert Miller. Tell him to kill this kid. At any cost. He ruined his plan and stole his companies. He would not let that boy stay by Clara's side a moment longer. After leaving the office, Clara rubbed her temples, the grim expression not yet leaving her face. 10 years ago, when her mother was critically ill, Victor had deliberately delayed telling her, causing her mother to miss the window for life-saving surgery. After her mother's death, he'd ignored her completely. If it weren't for her grandparents, she might not have survived at all, and he dared call himself her father. Clara's eyes grew colder, a murderous glint appearing within them. Letting him live this long was the greatest mercy she could offer. Bianca's return. You handle the arrangements, Clara said to Ava, her voice tight as she settled into the car. A heavy pressure was building in her chest. She just got back. Don't disturb her. Once she's rested, invite her to the estate for dinner. She could introduce Jason to her then. Yes, ma'am. Ava bowed her head nervously. Where to now, Ms. Sterling? Where to? Clara stared out at the glittering expanse of the city at night, the corners of her eyes tinged with red. A suffocating restlessness weighed on her heart. The heavy air felt lonely, leaving a hollow ache inside her. In this vast city, every window glowed with warmth. Yet here, she was possessing everything and nothing at all. She didn't even have a real home. In that moment, the only person she could think of was the man who brought her an inexplicable sense of peace. He had some kind of magic about him. Back to the estate, she said softly. To see him. She wanted to see him. A short while later, the exclusive black Maybach pulled up to the gates of the silent Sterling estate, its arrival stirring the fragrant scent of rose petals in the air. The staff inside immediately tensed. The boss is back, Ms. Sterling. Everyone stopped what they were doing and bowed their heads respectfully. Clara's cold gaze swept over them as she stepped out of the car. Looking at the imposing manner, the thought that he was inside, waiting for her, inexplicably lifted her spirits. Her fingers brushed against the piece of chocolate in her pocket, and the corners of her mouth turned up in an unconscious smile. She wondered if the little thing had been causing any trouble. The fleeting smile vanished as she walked through the main doors. Entering the vast main hall, she saw only a few maids cleaning in the quiet, empty space. The dining table had been cleared, spotless. The hall was so immaculate, it was as if he had never been there at all. Clara frowned, her eyes scanning the room, but he was nowhere to be seen. A chill instantly settled in her gaze. Had he really been so desperate to leave her? Where is he? She demanded, her cold eyes fixing on a maid, a dangerous edge to her voice. If he dared to run again, she would break his legs with her own hands and lock him in a cage. A pet without legs might lose some of its spirit, but at least it could never escape. She could keep him in luxury for the rest of his life. The maids looked startled for a moment. Then realization dawned. Sir had dinner, walked around the grounds for a bit, and should be asleep by now, one of them explained, understanding she was asking about Jason. Hearing this, the murderous intent in Clara's eyes subsided. He didn't wait for me. The moment she said it, she remembered. Before she left, she had told her assistant to let him sleep. Clara rubbed her brow. Fine. Which room is he in? As long as he didn't run, she could let the rest go. The young maids exchanged timid glances. He was very quiet this time. He didn't try to run, but, Ms. Sterling, please don't be angry. One of them began. He's asleep in your room. The maid said it in a rush, sneaking glances at Clara's face. Clara's brow furrowed slightly, and the maids immediately panicked. Ms. Sterling, he probably didn't mean to. We saw him go in, but it was too late. They scrambled to explain, terrified of her anger. A new maid who had once entered her room against orders had been banished from New York City entirely. Their hearts pounded in their chests. But in the next second, to everyone's astonishment, Clara let out a soft scoff. He went to my room, she repeated, her tone light, her expression relaxing. For a moment, everyone wondered if they were hearing a hint of pleasure in her voice. An illusion. It had to be an illusion. Ms. Sterling, they started to say, but Clara cut them off. It seems he's learning. He knows how to fulfill his duties as a husband. He'd gone to her bed on his own initiative. She had underestimated the little thing. He was bolder than she thought. Wasn't he afraid she'd come back and do something to him? If he liked sleeping there, then let him sleep. As it happened, she was curious to see if he was really asleep or if he'd gone to her room on purpose. A playful smirk touched Clara's lips as she ignored the staff's bewildered stares and walked directly toward her bedroom. The heavy, sandalwood door to her room was ajar. Inside, the lights were off. Clara paused at the entrance, deliberately slowing her steps. Pushing the door open, she could see the silhouette of a man lying on her bed, illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the window. The faint, metallic scent of his blood hung in the air. Jason's breathing was steady and deep. Gone was the defensive wariness he usually showed her. In its place was a relaxed calm, the kind of inherent security a man possesses in sleep. Just seeing his face was enough to soothe the turmoil in her heart. A gentle warmth spread through her. Clara's eyes softened. "You're much better behaved like this," she murmured, "than when you're all bristly and defensive." Her gaze drifted down to his chest. Even through his dark shirt, she could see that the blood had soaked through, staining a small patch of her bedding. Her brow tightened. "Ma'am, we'll change the sheets for Mr. Jason immediately," a maid whispered nervously from behind her. Clara's gaze sharpened again. "No need. Change them tomorrow. And in the morning, call someone from the Luo family's practice to come dress his wound." He was willing to be that rough with himself just to avoid hurting Brooke. But no matter how much he couldn't let go, now that he was in the Sterling house, he was staying. "You may all go." A weariness settled over Clara's features. She was tired, a deep, draining exhaustion of the soul. On impulse, she slipped off her black coat and stepped into the bedroom. The moment the door clicked shut, Ava and the maid stared at each other in shock. "Ms. Sterling didn't threaten to kill Jason. He had stained her bedsheets. She wasn't even a little angry. She even said to call a doctor for him." Ava was floored. Is she going in there to kill him herself? Though she'd only known Jason for a few days, he seemed sincere enough. She suddenly felt a flicker of concern that he might not survive the night. "Maybe we should listen at the door? Just in case he tries to hurt her," a wide-eyed bodyguard suggested. "Good idea. It's for her safety." Ava instantly agreed, and they both crept toward the door to eavesdrop. Inside the bedroom, Jason was deep in a hazy sleep when he felt a small, cool hand slip under his blanket. "Cut it out," he mumbled, assuming it was one of his old college roommates playing a prank. He rolled over, turning his back to the intruder. But then a faint, intoxicating scent of roses filled his senses. Jason didn't open his eyes, but his brow furrowed in his sleep. He hadn't slept in 2 days. He was too exhausted. The cool hand, however, grew bolder, creeping up to rest on his stomach. A moment later, a soft, feminine body pressed against his chest, and a chin rested in the crook of his neck. The familiar scent finally pierced through his sleep-addled mind. Something wasn't right. "You, don't move." He tried to speak, but the woman held him fast. An unnatural chill seemed to radiate from her body, seeping into his own until he felt like he was encased in ice. Her voice, however, was as cold and clear as ever. "Don't move. I'm tired. I'm not in a mood to play with you right now." Her voice was laced with exhaustion as she spoke from the hollow of his neck. "Just let me lean on you, just for a little while." She should have been disgusted, repulsed by the dirt and blood on him. But in that moment, the warmth of his body met the oppressive weight on her soul, and an overwhelming drowsiness washed over her. For the first time in decades, she felt safe enough to truly sleep. Jason was just as exhausted. He didn't even bother opening his eyes. Sensing no murderous intent from the woman, he let himself sink back into a deep sleep. While the two of them slept, the eavesdropping Ava and bodyguard outside were losing their minds. Did she just say, "Sleep for a while"? They're sleeping together. Slap me. Tell me I'm hallucinating. Ava whispered, her face a mask of disbelief. The bodyguard obliged, giving her a sharp slap across the cheek. "It's not a dream. The Ice Queen is finally thawing." Ava clutched her stinging cheek, a giddy, excited smile spreading across her face. If the old matriarch heard this news, she would be ecstatic. This time it was their Ms. Sterling who made the first move. Without any drugs involved, the matriarch could have a grandnephew soon. She had to call the Luo family's practice immediately and get their best doctor. They couldn't let Jason's injury get infected. It would be bad for procreation. With that thought, Ava hurried off to make the call. So soon, at the Luo family residence, Kinsey was surprised to get the call from the Sterling estate. The Sterlings had gone through plenty of would-be husbands over the years, but this was the first one Clara had ever bothered to call a doctor for. After a moment's thought, Kinsey sent a text to Brooke. "Clara Sterling actually called a doctor for your boy toy. I'm going over tomorrow morning. Figure out what you want me to say." Truthfully, she would have gone even if it wasn't for Brooke. She was very interested in this Jason. If she could find a way to get him out, she was happy to help. But she didn't want him to think she was only doing it because of Brooke. Jason slept soundly. It wasn't until the sun was high in the sky the next day that he finally woke up. He rolled over and stretched. As he opened his eyes, he came face to face with an impossibly beautiful woman. She was pressed against him, her exquisitely sculpted features free of makeup, radiating a cold, ethereal beauty. Her skin was a sickly, snowy white, and her waist-length hair was like smooth, black satin. On her palm-sized face, her thick, curly lashes were perfectly still. The scent of orchids emanated from her soft, red lips, her signature rose fragrance. In sleep, with her eyes closed, the coldness in her gaze was hidden, softening her entire demeanor. She almost didn't look like the she-devil he knew. Still, Jason didn't dare move a muscle. Seriously? When did this lunatic sneak into my room? Doesn't she have enough rooms in this mansion to sleep in? The thought had barely formed when he spotted a pile of red velvet clothing on the nightstand. His eyes scanned the rest of the room. The fragrant, crimson-themed decor. It was obviously her style. There was even a fresh set of clothes laid out for him by the bed. Jason fell silent. He couldn't be this unlucky. Had he actually crashed in her room? The evidence was overwhelming. "Damn it, I was dead on my feet last night," he muttered. He had been too exhausted to be careful. Fortunately, the woman beside him was still asleep. He carefully began to inch away. But the moment he moved, her brow furrowed. She didn't wake up, but she was clearly displeased. Fearing he'd wake her, Jason froze, resigning himself to letting her use his arm as a pillow. Within half an hour, his arm was completely numb. Can this woman sleep forever? Seeing that Clara showed no signs of waking, a new idea sparked in his mind. Perfect. She's asleep. Now I can do whatever I want. A glint appeared in Jason's eyes as he looked at her. Now was the time to do something he'd wanted to do, but never dared. With that, he carefully extracted his free hand. His gaze roamed over Clara's curled form, hot with a flicker of anticipation. Let's break free from this prison. His eyes burned with a love for freedom as his hand moved toward Clara's waist and began to search. He was not shy about it, patting her down from her ankles to her back, inside and out. But after several minutes of searching, he came up empty. How is it not here? Had she not put it on? Jason was frustrated, but wasn't ready to give up. He wanted to flip her over and search again. Where the hell did she hide the controller for his bracelet? He didn't notice that Clara's brow had tightened. She had been asleep at first, but she was a light sleeper. Jason's groping had woken her up some time ago. She was a notorious germaphobe, and having a man's hands all over her was making her blood boil. What on earth was he looking for? He'd practically searched her entire body. Hadn't he gotten his fill that other night? What was he doing now? Is it too small? Just as Clara was suppressing her rage, Jason's hand reached her chest, and he muttered the question under his breath. Clara's eyes snapped open, her body radiating a murderous aura. Small. Did he just call her small? Was he not satisfied? How big did he want them? She was way bigger than Brooke. Jason hadn't noticed she was awake. Finding nothing on her, he carefully slipped his arm out from under her and moved to the pile of clothes on the nightstand. Rose petals were scattered over the neatly folded garments. There was a red silk nightgown and a matching set of delicate red lace. Lingerie. It was beautifully designed with a small bow, clearly custom-made. Jason hesitated for a moment before reaching for it. He felt his cheeks flush as he looked at the soft fabric. It was a violation of privacy, but he had to find that controller. This is for the greater good, a righteous act, he told himself, picking up the clothes and starting to search. If Clara hadn't forced him to wear this thing, he wouldn't be doing this. His guilt was minimal. As Clara watched through narrowed eyes, seeing Jason pick up her lingerie, her face grew searing hot. The boy was going through her clothes? Did he have those kind of thoughts? Hadn't he just called her small? Or maybe he had a specific fetish. But then, Jason's hand slipped, and her lingerie fell to the floor. For Clara, that was the final straw. Jason, a low, chilling voice sounded from above him. You'd better have a very good reason. Jason froze, finally feeling the murderous glare boring into him. Busted. It's nothing. He quickly pulled his hand back, even tried to neatly fold the clothes he'd disturbed, pretending he hadn't done anything. Oomph. Clara watched his fumbling with a cold sneer. Who were you calling small a moment ago? Small. Jason's mind blanked. Damn it. She heard that too? Hopefully, she didn't realize he was looking for the controller. No, I said the blanket was a little small. I was worried you wouldn't be covered and you'd get cold. Seeing the look in her eyes, he spit out the first lie that came to mind, feigning concern. Clara narrowed her eyes, her expression shifting. Really? His concerned look didn't seem fake. But, do you really think I believe that? Clara scoffed, but then her eyes caught the extra blanket in Jason's other hand, and she paused. Was it possible he was actually trying to cover her? Then why was he touching her clothes? She studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, but Jason's expression was unreadable. Thankfully, he'd had the foresight to grab a spare blanket when he got out of bed. Now it all depended on whether the she-devil would buy it. You, Ms. Sterling, the doctor from the Luo family is here. Just as Clara was about to speak, a knock at the door cut her off. It was Ava. Clara's brow furrowed, clearly annoyed by the interruption. But remembering his injuries, she let her gaze soften. Don't let me see you do that again. She turned away, hiding the blush creeping up her neck as she pulled on a robe and walked out of the bedroom. The doctor is here for you. Get dressed and come downstairs to have your wound looked at. Until I say you can die, you'd better stay alive for me. With that parting shot, she was gone, though her heart was still beating strangely fast. What was wrong with her? After she left the room, she couldn't resist a glance back. Worried she'd get cold? Did he really think she was that stupid? She wasn't buying such a childish lie. No way. Ma'am, why is your face so red? Ava asked, looking at her boss with confusion. Clara shot her a glare. Which one of your eyes sees my face as red? Her, blushing. Both of them. Ava mumbled under her breath, looking down defiantly. She had clearly seen her boss blushing. She was just worried about her health. But, if she remembered correctly, it wasn't time for Ms. Sterling's condition to act up. Supervise his treatment. I'm going to the study, Clara said, quickly regaining her composure. She cast one last look toward the room where Jason was changing before heading down the hall. Ava nodded, but inside, she gave Jason a mental thumbs up. Respect. Total respect. The guy had survived the night. Inside the bedroom, Jason hadn't heard their exchange. But seeing Clara leave without even changing her clothes, he knew there was no way the controller was in this room or on her person. He was frustrated, but he changed into the clothes the maids had provided and, after cleaning himself up, left the bedroom. Sir, the doctor is downstairs. Ms. Sterling said you can discuss the contract after your wound is treated, Ava said as soon as he emerged. Jason gave a cool nod and followed her downstairs. In the main hall, a woman in a white coat was waiting with a medical bag. When Ava saw her, she seemed surprised, as if the doctor's presence was unexpected. Her tone became much more respectful. Ms. Luo, why did you come yourself? This isn't for Ms. Sterling's condition, it's for our. Sir, Ava explained, describing his injuries to the doctor. Meanwhile, Jason laid down on the sofa under the watchful eyes of several maids, waiting for the doctor. As he walked past, he glanced at her. She wore a mask, and her hair was cut in a neat bob that framed her collarbones. She radiated a warm, vibrant energy. But Jason couldn't shake the feeling that he'd seen her somewhere before. With that thought nagging him, he looked around at the 5 or 6 maids hovering nearby. Clara was gone. Who knows where? He wondered if he should try to connect with this doctor, maybe use her as a future escape route. But the maids were staring at him so intently they barely blinked. They were probably still spooked from his last escape attempt. Resigned, Jason laid back down obediently. It's fine. Things have been busy at the practice, so I thought I'd come myself, the doctor said, finishing her conversation with Ava. She walked over to Jason. When Kinsey saw him lying on the sofa with his eyes half closed, her heart did a little flutter. This was the first time she'd seen him alone, without Brooke. She almost blurted out his name. Luckily, she managed to restrain herself. She expertly opened her medical bag, then cleared her throat. Ahem, lift your shirt so I can see the wound. She wore gloves, but her bright, curious eyes were fixed on Jason, hoping he would recognize her voice. But Jason just gave a detached "oh" and emotionlessly lifted his shirt. Kinsey's throat tightened. She had seen Jason multiple times, and he didn't remember her at all? A wave of disappointment washed over her, but it quickly turned into a blush when she saw his exposed torso. His well-defined abs were crisscrossed with angry red welts from a whip, a shocking sight. She'd always known Jason was in good shape, but this was the first time she'd seen him up close. Exposed. The face under her mask was probably beet red, but seeing his injuries also filled her with pity. Does it hurt? Kinsey's lips formed a small pout, her eyes turning red. That Clara Sterling. How could she be so vicious? Kinsey's family had been doctors for generations, and she had a natural empathy for anyone or anything that was hurt. Her sudden concern surprised Jason. It's fine, he said dismissively. In truth, Clara's whip marks weren't that deep. Most of the damage was self-inflicted from the knife. but it was still technically because of Clara. Kinsey, however, wouldn't have it. Jason, you didn't really forget me, did you? She whispered, dabbing antiseptic on his stomach. Her voice was tinged with complaint. You're famous in New York now. You don't even remember the friend who used to pass your love notes for you. She was being so obvious, and he still hadn't recognized her? Was Brooke really the only person on his mind? Kinsey's eyes fell. For the first time, she felt a little jealous of her friend. Her words finally clicked for Jason. Kinsey. He knew she looked familiar. Jason was so shocked he almost shot up from the sofa. Realizing Ava and the maids were still watching, he forced himself to stay put. What are you doing here? He whispered, glancing at the others. Seeing them all staring, he quickly barked at Ava. I'm hungry. Give me a piece of toast. Ava was about to order a maid to do it when she saw Jason staring directly at her. You want me to go? She asked, indignant. Her own boss never made her do manual labor. How dare Jason order her around? Yes, you. Or I'll call Clara, Jason said with a shrug, making a move as if to shout. It wasn't that he wanted to cause trouble. Ava was just watching him too closely. It would be easier to handle the others. He had to get her out of the room. If Clara found out he was meeting with Brooke's friend, who knew what kind of storm that would cause. You little snake. Fine, I'll make it for you. Ava hissed, her second time being threatened into submission. But her fear of Clara won out, and she grudgingly walked to the kitchen. Jason turned his attention back to Kinsey. Okay, you can talk now. You finally recognized me. I was starting to think you'd forgotten, Kinsey said, taking off her mask. She was still a little hurt. Jason forced a smile. Of course not. You just got so much prettier, I didn't dare sim. A little flattery never hurt. In truth, he barely remembered Kinsey. They'd met a few times, always through Brooke. Now, with her mask off, he was seeing her clearly for the first time. The Luo family, New York's medical dynasty. Kinsey was the heir apparent, a medical student at their university, and a goddess to many of the nerdy guys on campus. He remembered her as having a more athletic, sunny style. A warm brown bob, an oval face, and bright, almond-shaped eyes. Her skin wasn't as pale as Clara's or Brooke's, but she radiated a healthy, warm energy. This was the first time he'd seen her in a white coat. It added a playful warmth to her usual sunny vibe. Well, since you put it that way, I guess I can forgive you, Kinsey said, her mood lifting at the compliment. Did Brooke send you? Jason already suspected as much. Kinsey's face fell. Couldn't I have come on my own? You? Jason frowned, giving her a strange, assessing look. He couldn't remember them having much of a relationship. Meanwhile, in the study of the Sterling estate, Clara leaned back in her leather office chair, one long finger pressed to her temple, her eyes closed. The other hand tapped a restless rhythm on the desk. You're saying Kinsey Luo came to treat him herself? Her voice was quiet and cold, but it filled the room with a palpable pressure. Ava nodded, her heart pounding. Yes, but he didn't seem to recognize her. I don't think they know each other. She had become suspicious the moment Kinsey showed up. When Jason sent her for toast, she took the opportunity to report to Clara. It wasn't that she was a tattletale, but if she didn't report it now, things could get much worse if Clara saw Kinsey downstairs later. Brooke, she really is persistent. Clara's eyes opened, a cold glint flashing within them. Her red lips curled into a mocking sneer. Keep an eye on him. I'll be down shortly. She wanted to see what choice he would make. Of course, if he dared to run off with Kinsey, she would make sure he understood the consequences of being a disobedient pet. Yes, ma'am. Ava bowed and left, saying a silent prayer for Jason. In the study, Clara glanced at the missed call on her phone screen. She dialed back. The other end picked up immediately. Aunt Clara, I thought you'd be too busy doting on your new husband to answer my calls. What's this? Are you serious about this one? Her niece, Bianca's cheerful, teasing voice came through the line. Clara's expression softened. How have you been resting these past few days? Great. The city has changed a lot, Bianca said brightly, her tone shifting to one of probing curiosity. But I'm more interested in meeting your new prize. The whole city is talking. The great Clara Sterling, spending fortunes and taking down enemies to protect her husband. They're saying you're completely infatuated. Her teasing was a reflection of the rumors swirling around New York. Bianca hadn't believed it at first. She knew her aunt's personality too well. But after what happened to Leo Miller and Clara completely cutting ties with Victor for this man, she was starting to get curious. What kind of man could have her aunt so bewitched? You believe those rumors? Clara thought of Jason and felt a flash of annoyance. She hadn't slept properly in a decade, but last night, next to him, she'd slept soundly for the first time. Yet the moment he woke up, he was already plotting his escape. Sometimes she really did want to just lock him up forever. You said you came back to find someone you care about. Any progress? Clara changed the subject, her voice growing cool again. And how is your health? Her niece had albinism and a weak constitution. She couldn't be in the sun for long. Don't worry, Annie, he won't get away, Bianca said, her voice turning sharp. When I find him, I'll make sure he remembers the price for leaving me. Her lips curved into a smile, but her heart ached. That Jason. She had been looking for him for so long. Now that she'd found him, she would never let him go again. Let's hope you still feel that way when you see him, Clara scoffed. But you can send me his information. I can help you find him. With her status in New York, there was no one she couldn't find. Achoo. Downstairs, Jason suddenly sneezed. He felt like someone was talking about him, a chill running down his spine. Kinsey saw his disappointed expression and her own gaze dimmed. Brooke sent me, she admitted, her head bowed. She said I should help you escape. Escape? The words puzzled Jason. He thought after yesterday, Brooke would have moved on. She had an army of admirers. She didn't need him. And he'd almost stabbed her. She should be tired of the game by now. Why send Kinsey? Had his acting been too convincing? I appreciate you both trying to help me, but now isn't the right time. You get that, right? Jason said, frowning at Kinsey as she worked on his wound. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave. His life wasn't in immediate danger, so escaping wasn't a top priority. Being near Clara had its advantages, and it was better to keep an escape route open for when he really needed it. Besides, he definitely couldn't leave with Brooke. The she-devil Clara was watching him like a hawk. If he ran, she would probably launch a citywide manhunt. I get it. Kinsey looked at his face and misinterpreted his meaning completely. You won't come with me because you're afraid of getting Brooke in trouble. He cared about her that much. Huh? Jason was speechless. What kind of logic was that? I can't leave yet, Jason stated plainly. Kinsey's hands stilled. Is it because... had he fallen for Clara? The rumors have been all over the city for days. The powerful head of the Sterling family, risking a war with the Millers and seizing her own father's companies, all for you. Anyone would be moved by that. She spoke softly, a mix of disappointment and hesitation in her eyes. Are you starting to want to stay with her? If he wasn't leaving with her, that was the only conclusion she could draw. But this was just a game to Clara. Once she got bored, Jason would be a dead man. Stay with her? Jason stared at Kinsey's expression, first stunned, then exasperated. You're overthinking this. I'm worried about you being here alone. It's dangerous, he explained quickly. I'm not a masochist. Why would I want to stay with Clara and get whipped every day? This still hurts. He winced as she applied more ointment to the wounds. Was he crazy? Why would he ever want to stay with her? He just couldn't leave yet, and certainly not with Brooke's friend, or he'd never be able to clear his name. Hearing his words, Kinsey's face flushed. You're worried? About me? She thought he only cared about Brooke, that he'd forgotten all about her. What? I'm saying, it's dangerous for you to come here alone. Don't do it again. Here, I'll give you my number, Jason said, quickly changing the subject as he saw the intense look in her eyes. I'll write it down. Call me next time, but don't give this number to Brooke. He felt like she was completely misreading the situation. Or maybe women just had a built-in filtering system that blocked out everything except what they wanted to hear. Jason grabbed a piece of paper from the table. Glancing around to make sure the maids weren't watching, he quickly scribbled down the number. He didn't notice the cold, female gaze fixed on him from the top of the stairs. Giving her his number? Or was it a way to escape from her? Clara's lips curved into an icy smile, her eyes narrowing. She had just offered to help Bianca find her lost love, but Bianca had refused, saying she had things to handle and would visit the estate in a couple of weeks to meet her new husband. After hanging up, Clara had come down to check on Jason, only to find him plotting his escape. Downstairs, Jason's hand froze. He felt a sudden, intense killing intent. His intuition was rarely wrong. After the last few days, he didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. He decisively tore off the piece of paper and stuffed it into his pocket with lightning speed. Sure enough, just as the paper disappeared, and before Kinsey could even react, a woman's cool voice drifted down from the staircase. Ms. Luo, you came all this way for a few simple whip marks? The Luo family practice must not be very busy these days. Clara appeared at the top of the stairs, clad in a black velvet robe. She looked languid and relaxed at home, the robe hanging loosely off one shoulder, her perfect, pale feet bare. Her face was free of makeup, her long, silky hair fragrant and smooth. But Jason could smell danger. How long had she been standing there? Did she see? He tensed up. The maids in the hall bowed their heads, not daring to breathe. Ms. Sterling, I didn't realize you were here. Kinsey froze, stepping away from Jason to face Clara. Things aren't too busy. I mostly came today on my grandfather's behalf to inquire about your condition. I thought I'd stop by personally. Kinsey, a daughter of a medical dynasty herself, offered a polite, flawless excuse. Clara's lips twitched. You're too kind, Ms. Luo. But since Jason arrived, my condition has improved significantly. As she spoke, her gaze shifted from Kinsey to Jason. Her expression was unreadable, but Jason felt a wave of displeasure rolling off her. He was also confused. Condition? What condition? It sounded like there was more to Clara's health issues than just being frail. I'm glad to hear you're well, Ms. Sterling. My grandfather had me bring a new medication. It can help alleviate the pain when an episode occurs. Please accept it. Kinsey, sensing Clara's suspicion, quickly produced the prepared medicine. An assistant took it and presented it respectfully to Clara. I've already had this month's payment wired over, Clara said with a dismissive glance at the medicine, then gestured for it to be taken away. Her eyes returned to Jason. Come here. Her voice was soft, but the command was absolute. Jason exchanged a look with Kinsey. Had Clara found out? His heart pounded, but knowing her temper, he stood up and walked toward her. He held his breath, the note in his pocket feeling like a lead weight. He looked up at her. Clara stood 2 steps above him, her eyes half-lidded as she watched him. The air grew thick with tension. Just as the suspense became unbearable, Clara's lips bloomed into a faint smile. When we were sleeping last night, I felt you were a bit warm. I think you had a fever. Did you ask Miss Luo to take a look? Her tone was shockingly intimate, completely different from her usual coldness. The words were impossible to misunderstand. Even Jason was stunned. She was dead asleep all night, wasn't she? Ms. Sterling, when did you? He started to ask, but a cold look from her silenced him. Don't be shy, she said, her voice dropping to a purr. I'd worry if you got sick. As she spoke, she reached out, and in front of a horrified Kinsey, she casually tugged down the collar of his shirt. A cluster of angry, red hickeys on his neck and chest were suddenly exposed to the air. Kinsey's eyes widened as if she'd been stabbed. A suffocating lump formed at her throat. You two are so in love. It's enviable. Kinsey choked out, her eyes turning red. She gripped her medical bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. They had already slept together. Brooke had never told her that. He and Brooke had been together for a year, and nothing like that had ever happened. But with Clara, it happened on the first day. The wound is treated. If there's nothing else, Ms. Sterling, I'll be going. Kinsey turned away, grabbing her bag. Clara must have forced him, she told herself over and over. Jason is a good guy. He wouldn't do that. But her earlier fantasy of maybe, someday, being with Jason herself now felt utterly foolish. She never realized a broke, powerless college student could be in such high demand. Ms. Luo, wait. You didn't leave me any medicine for redressing the wound. Jason called out, seeing that Kinsey was so flustered she'd forgotten her purpose. He rushed forward to stop her. He surreptitiously dropped the note into her open medical bag, while silently complaining to himself. What's with this woman? Can't she even be professional about a jailbreak? After leaving the medication, Kinsey gave Jason one last, deep look and then departed. Ms. Sterling, the next delivery will be in a week. Contact me if you need anything before then, she said on her way out. Clara paid her no mind, her eyes fixed on the reluctant Jason. What? You want to go with her? When Ava had come to get her, she had intentionally given him time to escape. Only the maids and a few guards were watching. If he had wanted to run, he could have at least made it to the main gate. He would have been caught, of course, but he hadn't even tried. Did that mean he wanted to stay? If I wanted to go with her, would you let me, Ms. Sterling? Jason shot back with a cold snort. The woman was just playing games, and the fact that Ava had been so easily sent away earlier had to be a trap. He was lucky he hadn't made a run for it, or he'd be fertilizer by now. You're very smart. Clara smiled, a chilling expression that promised death. Don't think I didn't see what you put in her medical bag. His little tricks couldn't fool her. Then why didn't you stop me? Jason looked at her, his suspicions confirmed. She had seen everything but remained calm and in control. He hadn't really expected to fool her, but Kinsey was from the Luo family, and from their conversation, it was clear they were treating Clara for something. He was betting she would be hesitant to make a move against them. You bet correctly, Clara hummed, satisfied with the expression on his face. I won't kill a member of the Luo family right now. However, her voice grew husky. That's not for the sake of their useless medicine. It's for you. She raised a long, beautiful finger and tilted his chin up. The intoxicating scent of roses filled the air, making him feel as though he were trapped in a thorny, moonlit garden. Jason held his breath. Her stunning face was only inches from his, her moist, red lips an irresistible invitation. His heart began to beat faster, and he cursed himself internally. Damn it, This woman is definitely doing this on purpose. He didn't know why, but she had a strange effect on him. Dangerous, yet alluring. Like a venomous snake luring him in before striking at his heart. And you think I believe that, Ms. Sterling? Jason suppressed his racing pulse and took a step back, trying to put distance between himself and this dangerous woman. Clara's eyes flashed with annoyance at his retreat. She let out a derisive laugh, her voice turning to ice. You don't have to believe me, but whether it's the Luo family or the Lin family, anyone who dares to take you from me, I will see to it that they are wiped from the face of this city. Then I'll drag you back here, break your legs, and lock you in a cage forever. She watched his face pale, slightly, a cruel smirk on her lips. The more he feared her, the more satisfied she was. That way, he would never have the courage to leave. Have someone follow Kinsey Luo, she said, her eyes still locked on Jason as she waved a hand at Ava. Who she meets, what information she passes on. I want to know everything. Her voice was soft, but the murderous intent was unmistakable. Yes, ma'am. Ava bowed and left, glancing at Jason with pity. She hadn't expected him to be in danger again so soon. All she could do was pray he survived another day. Jason watched Ava leave, his own heart pounding. He hoped Kinsey would do as he said and not give the number to Brooke. He was truly an innocent party in all this. He thought he could have cut ties with Brooke yesterday, but she just wouldn't quit. Ms. Sterling, lunch is ready, as per your instructions. Would you like to dine now? A young maid asked, approaching Clara. Clara raised an eyebrow and looked at Jason. She usually skipped lunch or had a small salad. Today's spread was specifically for him. Grumble. Before Jason could speak, his stomach answered for him. It wasn't that he was greedy. It was just that this woman never seemed to eat. No breakfast, no lunch, and it was already past 2 in the afternoon. She was thin and ate like a bird, but he was a grown man. What little he'd eaten yesterday was long gone. Ms. Sterling, you're not going to starve me 9 meals out of 10, are you? Jason couldn't help but ask. If that was the case, he wouldn't last a day here. Beaten and starved? This wasn't a marriage. It was a prison sentence with private torture sessions. Then, let's have lunch. Watching Jason's petulant expression, Clara didn't notice the corners of her own mouth turning up. Was the boy sulking? He was much cuter this way. When he was around those other women, he was just plain irritating. Yes, ma'am. The nervous maids quickly led them to the dining room. Hearing he could finally eat, Jason pushed thoughts of Kinsey aside and sat down at the table. He couldn't contact Sprite under Clara's watch anyway. He'd just have to deal with the fallout later. The table this time was a more reasonably sized rectangle. Maybe his shouting across the table last time had an effect. The table was already laden with a feast, and nearly every dish was one of his favorites. Jason was surprised. A maid smiled. Ms. Sterling, we prepared this according to your instructions after researching the gentleman's culinary preferences. Researching? My preferences? Jason looked up and saw Clara shoot the maid a death glare. When she noticed him looking, she quickly averted her eyes. Don't read too much into it. I just don't want you starving to death on my property, she said stiffly, a faint blush on her ears. She could have her new favorite pet wasting away. She glanced at another assistant, who understood the signal and placed a folder on the table. Sign it. Clara pushed the folder toward Jason with one slender finger. Jason frowned. What's this? The marriage contract. What else would it be? Clara's beautiful eyes arched in amusement. This is your reward for proving yourself by hurting Brooke Lynn. Sign it, and you'll be the true master of the Sterling house. Her tone was unusually calm, devoid of threats. Jason, however, reacted as if he'd touched a hot stove, instantly shoving the folder away. Why would I sign this? Why was she trying to make him sign his life away again? He'd told her 100 times. He was for rent, not for sale. Why was she so obsessed with tying him down? Jason, I'm not negotiating with you. Clara's expression turned cold. Seeing him reject her so swiftly ignited a fire in her. This was the 3rd time he had refused her. There was a limit to playing hard to get. Or was it? You still want to leave me and go back to Brooke Lynn? Her voice became dangerously quiet, her red lips pulling back in a snarl, her eyes flashing with a crimson light. If he dared to say yes, she would break his legs right now. The chilling, murderous aura in the air made Jason shiver. Ms. Sterling, you're mistaken, he said quickly, his tone serious. I hurt Brooke not because I wanted to marry you, but to prove that I was a victim in their scheme too. That we're on the same side. If she wanted to give him a reward, it shouldn't be this. Give him a few million, he'd gladly take it. But a life-binding marriage contract? No way. Now that I've proven my loyalty, I hope we can have a rational discussion about going our separate ways and not interfering with each other's lives. What do you think? Jason tried to reason with her, But Clara wasn't listening. I think it's a terrible idea. No one she wanted had ever escaped her. He could forget it. As for your reward, there's something else. Suppressing the inexplicable rage bubbling inside her, Clara produced another folder and pushed it in front of him. Leo Miller was rescued by his family, so I took all of Victor Sterling's companies and transferred them to your name. Her beautiful, pale face remained impassive, but her eyes were fixed on his. Do you like this gift? She asked, as if genuinely seeking his opinion. He didn't react. She frowned. If you don't, I can send someone to kill Leo now. It's not too late. Kill. She said it as if she were talking about swatting a fly. Even with her calm expression, Jason could feel the madness radiating from her. She seemed to think that since Leo wasn't dead, she owed him compensation. Looking at the contract, Jason's brow furrowed. He glanced at Clara, then back at the papers, then at her again, unable to believe it. This woman had seized all of her own father's companies and was now just giving them to him. Did she have any idea these assets were worth 10 times more than the $100 million card? He thought she was just using him as an excuse to consolidate her power, but she was actually giving it to him as a gift. Ms. Sterling, actually you. Jason opened his mouth, wanting to refuse, but the temptation was immense. And, aside from Vivian, this was the first time anyone had given him a gift since his parents died. A small part of his heart was touched. Now, are you ready to sign this contract? Clara said, seeing the look in his eyes. No. Jason's reply was sharp and immediate. He wasn't stupid enough to trade his life for a few $100 million. He was touched by the gift, but he was more terrified. Holy hell, this she-devil steals her father's companies and gives them to him? Was he crazy or was she? If he accepted this, Victor Sterling would have him killed without a second thought. A woman as smart as Clara had to know that. Jason suspected this was another one of her tests. But Clara's patience had run out. You will sign this contract, whether you want to or not. Sign it or die. The person she wanted would either stay by her side or die by her side. She would absolutely not allow him to run back to Brooklyn. Her face became a cold mask, and a palpable killing intent filled the room. Several bodyguards took a step forward, their eyes hostile. Think carefully, she added, her voice a low, seductive threat. If you die, you'll never get your inheritance back. She didn't want him dead so easily. Not yet. She was still far too interested in him. The combination of threat and temptation worked. Jason knew he had ways to escape her, but doing so would expose his true identity and everything he'd hidden for years. That would be too much of a hassle. I'll sign, he said after a long moment of thought. But I have conditions. He would agree for now to placate her and protect his secrets. He figured a woman like Clara was probably just acting out of a mix of temporary fascination and wounded pride from his rejections. If he made her life miserable, she'd get bored of him in a few days. Then he could slip away. Hearing him agree, Clara's mood instantly brightened. Oh, I'm listening. As long as it wasn't about leaving her or seeing Brooklyn, there was nothing she couldn't give him. I want 3 ground rules. The moment the words left his mouth, Clara, who had been ready to grant his every wish, felt her eyelid twitch in fury. 3 rules? Jason, do you have your roles reversed? She hissed, clenching her teeth to stop herself from tearing him apart. 3 rules? Wasn't one enough? And she was the woman here. Shouldn't she be the one making the rules? I don't care. Either you agree, or you could just kill me now. Jason threw up his hands in a gesture of surrender. He had already compromised. It was only 3 rules. It wasn't like he'd asked for 30. He didn't even want to get married. She was the one forcing him. Fine, speak. She suppressed the twitch in her eye, but her gaze was sharp enough to skin him alive. 3 rules. She'd like to see what conditions he could possibly come up with. Jason ignored her murderous stare. First, during this contractual marriage, there will be no forced relations, no drugging, or any other means to initiate physical intimacy. This woman was just playing with him. Why should he give up his virginity for her game? Besides, he had no desire to sleep with someone so dangerous. What if she got bored, regretted it, and decided to silence him permanently? His righteous declaration was the final straw. The rage Clara had been struggling to contain finally exploded. She wanted him to stay, so she could have a child. And he was saying they couldn't have sex. Was she ugly? Men all over New York would kill to be in her bed. And he was telling her she couldn't touch him. Little thing, she purred, her eyes fixed on his handsome face, a deathly smile spreading across her lips. Are you sure you want to test whether I'm bluffing about killing you? Anyone who knew her knew this was the smile she wore right before she ended someone. In that moment, she genuinely wanted to kill him. The entire dining room fell silent. Every person holding their breath, suffocating under the immense, violent pressure radiating from her. Clara rose suddenly, her bare feet sinking into the soft red velvet carpet as she advanced on him. Jason instinctively shrank back. The woman's fragrance was an invasion, her cool, delicate body circling him with unnerving nonchalance. "You shall." Just as Jason started to speak, her slender fingers pressed against his lips. They were hands like works of art, exquisitely crafted, and as they moved to cup his cheek, her fingertips dug in, a sharp, painful warning. "You're not behaving," Clara said, her eyes cold and clear. She leaned in, her breath a fragrant, orchid-like whisper laced with threat. "My patience is limited." Her breath ghosted across his neck, a tickling, tantalizing sensation that was both chillingly seductive and deeply menacing. "Are you sure you want to disobey me?" "I can compromise," Jason said, pulling away from her icy touch. "I'm worried about your health right now. I think we should get to know each other for a while before doing that." "Worried about me?" A glint of sharp light flashed in Clara's beautiful, piercing eyes. "Do you think I'm that easy to fool?" She despised the way he recoiled from her touch. Absolutely despised it. And now he was trying to trick her with this act? She'd almost fallen for it, right before she'd overheard the little brat plotting with Kinsey about how to escape her. Did he have any idea how much self-control it took for her not to break his legs? "1 week," she said, her voice dropping to a frigid whisper as she leaned back in her chair, her gaze utterly displeased. "I'm giving you 1 week. That's the most I can concede." She couldn't wait any longer. 1 week? Jason shot back, stunned for a second. "Clara, you know that's insane. People don't just get married and have kids in a week." Was he the only sane person left in the world? He suddenly felt like some relic from a bygone era, a prude in a world moving at hyperspeed. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Then how long do you want?" She thought a week was already too long. Her body was getting weaker. 3 months. Jason blurted out. The warmth in Clara's magnificent eyes vanished, freezing over inch by inch. "Are you testing my patience, or are you testing how long you want to live?" She had already made her biggest concession. According to her original plan, they were supposed to be trying every single day, multiple times a day, until she was pregnant. 1 month. Not a day more. Done. Jason agreed instantly, the words tumbling out of his mouth before he could think. A flicker of regret crossed Clara's face. Damn it. She'd given him too much. The little bastard dared to play her. When that month was over, she would make him understand the consequences. "I have 2 other conditions," Jason added. Clara's temper flared. "Don't push your luck, kid." If he dared to say anything else about her not touching him, she would drag him into the bedroom right now. He didn't want it? She would enjoy forcing him. "Don't worry, you'll agree to these too," Jason said quickly, seeing the storm gathering in her eyes. "It's simple. As a legal citizen, I demand the freedom to enter and leave the Sterling estate. Also, I require meals at regular times and a weekly checkup with Dr. Luo to monitor my health." As he spoke, he watched her expression darken. "Clara, these injuries could get infected if they're not checked properly. These are my basic rights. If you don't agree, then our deal is off," he said, pushing himself up as if to leave. "You think you can leave this estate without my permission?" Clara's voice was a low, threatening hum from behind him, her eyebrows arching elegantly. The atmosphere in the dining room grew heavy. Jason stopped, his posture firm. "Either you agree, Clara, or you kill me." He wasn't bluffing. The moment she'd hesitated to kill him earlier, he knew. This woman wouldn't kill him, at least not until she was done using him. "You're good," Clara said, her eyes cold and deep. A low, humorless chuckle escaped her lips. "Fine, I agree, but it will depend on your performance." "Performance?" Jason asked, confused. Clara spoke slowly, deliberately. "If you satisfy me within this first week, I'll allow you to come and go as you please." Come and go. She had no intention of letting that happen. As long as he stayed obediently at the estate for 1 week, she had more than enough ways to eliminate anyone from the outside world who might try to contact him. By then, he would have no one left to turn to but her. "All right," Jason nodded, studying her face. He had a sinking feeling she was plotting something. He was right. Just as he was about to sign, Clara produced a document that unrolled to nearly a yard long. "You've stated your terms," she said with a smirk. "Now it's my turn." Jason stared at the ridiculously long contract, his brain short-circuiting. No wonder she'd agreed so easily. This was the trap. "I want to add more conditions. This isn't fair. Was there no justice in the world?" "Too late to add anything now." "Ava, read it to him," Clara said, lifting her coffee cup to hide a satisfied smile as she addressed her assistant. Did he think he was the only one who knew how to scheme? "Yes, Ms. Sterling." Ava picked up the scroll. First, you must ensure Ms. Sterling is pregnant within 6 months. Second, you are forbidden from having skin-to-skin contact with any woman other than Ms. Sterling. Third, you must soothe Ms. Sterling to sleep every night. You are not permitted to fall asleep before she does. Ava droned on, reading a seemingly endless list of stipulations. Jason's skin crawled. He regretted everything. He thought that as long as she didn't torture him, staying by her side might even be convenient. But now, only a madman would willingly stay with this psycho. I agree, Jason said, practically grinding his teeth. Agree my ass. I have to escape. Within 1 month, I have to get out. Sign it then, Clara said, satisfied he'd agreed before Ava had even finished. Under her watchful eye, Jason grabbed the pen and scribbled his name. Good. She took the contract, her eyes catching the defiant spark in his. She smirked. Since you've agreed, we're husband and wife now. Clara lifted her pale face, stifling a yawn. Her cool gaze fixed on him as she held out her hands. I'm tired. Carry me to bed. Her voice was soft and pleasant, her lips like cherry blossoms. Jason's brow twitched. He remained frozen in place. Ms. Sterling, we just agreed. We can't do that for another month. A lazy, devastatingly beautiful smile spread across Clara's icy face. An agreement? I don't believe I'm violating it. You said you couldn't be forced to do that kind of thing. You didn't say I couldn't sleep with you. Clara, you're shameless. Jason's face darkened. He never thought the heir to Sterling Industries would stoop to twisting words like this. Seeing his anger, Clara's smile only grew more captivating. Oh, darling, I love it when you look like that. Keep cursing. I love the sound of it, she purred, hooking a finger under his chin, her red lips parting slightly. Her deep, beautiful eyes shimmered with a disturbing, excited light. Fucking psycho, Jason cursed again in his head. He turned away, refusing to let her touch him. Clara huffed and withdrew her hand. You have a dirty mind, kid. I just want you to carry me to the bedroom. Are you thinking about that all day? She teased, her eyes raking over his body. Though her smile had faded, Jason could feel it. The woman was absolutely toying with him on purpose. You know exactly what you said, he shot back, giving her a sharp look. He rose, his face a thundercloud, and scooped the barefoot woman from the chair. The surrounding staff, including Ava, immediately lowered their heads. A moment ago, they'd been terrified for Jason. Now, seeing the satisfied smile on Clara's face, they all wondered if their eyes were deceiving them. He had just haggled with Ms. Sterling, and she was smiling? Not angry? Was this really their boss? Jason's movements were anything but gentle. Furious at being played, he kept his expression blank, even as her soft, fragrant body settled into his arms. His hands barely touched her, holding her at a distance. But Clara wasn't happy about that. You seem disgusted by me, she murmured, her sharp, almond-shaped eyes narrowing as she watched his hands. A dangerous light flared within them. Her pale arms were looped around his neck, her body pressed against his. She was practically offering herself to him, and he was acting repulsed. No, Jason denied flatly, refusing to even look at the woman in his arms, as if he were carrying a block of wood. Clara felt a surge of fury. Then why won't you touch me? You'd better think carefully, she hissed, her teeth clenched as she pulled out a small black remote. Jason's pupils contracted. He instantly relented, his hands moving to properly support her. What the hell was wrong with this woman? The rumors painted her as a cold, untouchable goddess. What was this obsession with being carried? The second he got out of here, he was setting the record straight. That's better. Pleased with his obedience, Clara allowed him to carry her to the bedroom and place her on the large, soft bed. The blood-stained sheets from before had been replaced. After setting her down, Jason turned to leave. Stop, the woman's voice called out from behind him. Come here. Help me change. Jason's eye twitched. What? Is she crazy? Did she not see him as a man? Or was she deliberately trying to seduce him? He was a normal guy. He had reactions. Ms. Sterling, don't you think that's an inappropriate request? He asked, frowning. But Clara was insistent. Change me. At home, she'd never changed or dressed herself. The maids always did it. Now, with only the two of them in the room, was she supposed to call a maid in? Besides, she was doing it on purpose. He acted like an unfeeling statue, and she wanted to see just how long he could last. Since she was demanding it, Jason didn't hold back. He was a grown man. What was there to be afraid of? Thankfully, he remembered there was a slip dress under a robe. With a few quick movements, he untied the velvet robe and let it fall. The nightgown was exquisitely designed, with a large, open back tied with a delicate bow. The thin fabric hung precariously on her shoulders, offering a tantalizing glimpse that was more seductive for what it concealed. Though her back was to him, the view was breathtakingly perfect. He knew she was a monster, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. Wait a minute. He had no memory of that night, but he didn't remember her being this. Well endowed, paired with that cold, refined face and her waist-length black hair, she was a devastating combination. If he didn't know her true nature, he might have been completely captivated. Have you seen enough? Her cold, spectral voice snapped him out of it. Yes, Jason coughed, his eyes meeting hers in the reflection. Her expression was a mix of haughty amusement and calculated seduction. Kid, didn't you just say you wouldn't do anything for a month? Clara lifted her chin proudly, a smirk playing on her lips as she watched his reaction. Your body is much more honest than your mouth. Think about it. Giving me a child within a month benefits us both. Still trying to act tough with her. If she didn't need a child, she would have broken his legs long ago for such defiance. Jason saw right through her. Ms. Sterling, our deal was for 1 month. It stays 1 month. A joke. Did she really think he'd agree? His only value to her was producing an heir. If he actually gave her a child, his usefulness would be over. He had no doubt the monster would tear him apart after that. Get some rest, Ms. Sterling. I'm leaving. He refused her flatly and turned towards the door. Clara stood frozen, her face darkening at his rejection. The nth time he'd refused her, she would remember this. Jason Miller, you've got guts, she called after him. If you refuse to perform your husbandly duties, you'd better not come crying to me when you run into trouble in New York. Jason didn't even turn around. Don't worry, Ms. Sterling. I won't be a bother. He walked out, but just as he cleared the doorway, he paused and turned back. What? Change your mind? Clara blinked. Then a satisfied smirk graced her lips. But Jason's next word surprised her. Ms. Sterling, there was something I wanted to ask you. About your medical condition. He had returned, his brow furrowed with concern as he looked at her slightly pale face. He'd overheard her talking to Kinsey about it earlier, and couldn't shake the question. It had sounded serious. Clara hadn't expected him to ask about her health. For a moment, she was stunned, a strange feeling stirring within her. Was he worried about her? You're worried about me? Clara's eyes narrowed, a hint of pleasure creeping into her voice. Jason felt she was misinterpreting things. Ms. Sterling, if it's inconvenient for you to talk about, just forget I asked. He turned to go. It was just a question, but it was a private Sterling family matter, especially one concerning her safety. It was normal for her not to tell him. Stop. He'd barely taken a step before her voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the air. Had she said she wouldn't tell him? Clara was annoyed. As my husband, you have a right to know. When I was a child, someone poisoned me with a rare cryotoxin. It flares up once a month, she stated coolly. What she didn't say was that each episode was agonizing, like being trapped in a world of ice, and the pain was growing worse as the toxin spread. If it reached her heart, she would die. Clara's eyes narrowed again, her tone shifting as a bloodthirsty smile touched her lips. So, now you know my secret. If you ever dare to run again, I'll have no choice but to kill you. A chill ran down Jason's spine. He wanted to slap himself. Why do you have to ask? Understood. If that's all, I'll be going. He didn't want to stay near her a second longer and turned to leave. Clara's eyebrow arched. An idea struck her. Wait, I'm hungry. Go to the kitchen and make me something. What? Ms. Sterling, the chefs have already prepared a full meal. You could just eat that. Jason was exasperated. First, she was tired. Now she was hungry. Was the banquet on the table invisible to her? Hearing his polite, distant address, the coldness in Clara's eyes intensified. Don't call me Ms. Sterling. Have you forgotten what you promised me yesterday? Ms. Sterling, Ms. Sterling. Was he that desperate to keep his distance? Just yesterday, he had called her his wife. I understand, Ms. Sterling, Jason replied out of habit, his mouth twitching. He had clearly forgotten. Clara, the food in the dining room should still be warm. I can bring it up for you. He decided to concede. Maybe she just liked eating in bed. But Clara's face remained cold. I want you to make it. Blueberry pie. Now. Jason was stunned. Clara shot him a look. And that's not all. Today, tomorrow, and every day from now on, I want to see a blueberry pie. And if you dare put anything extra in it, I'll feed you to the fish in the pond. That night, the blueberry pie had been for Brooklyn. He'd even added something to it, which was why she hadn't tasted it properly. That crazy peacock from the Lynn family had even bragged to her that Jason brought her blueberry pie every day, rain or shine. Dare to say she'd never had it? Huh. Understood. Jason studied her for a moment, seeing the fierce competitiveness in her eyes. And something else. A hint of jealousy? Was this woman really that petty? Fine, eat it then. He felt less like a contract husband and more like a personal pastry chef. With a strained expression, Jason left the room. Ava was already waiting in the hall. Sir, you didn't make Ms. Sterling angry, did you? She asked nervously as soon as he appeared. I don't think so. Jason wasn't sure. The woman was an ice queen. Who could tell if she was angry or not? Ava looked confused. I don't think so. What did that mean? But just then, Clara called for her from the bedroom. Ava braced herself and went inside. In the bedroom, Clara was lounging against the headboard, her long, pale legs crossed. She was staring at Jason's retreating back, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on her exquisite face. Ava entered and waited silently. A minute passed. 10 minutes passed. MS. Sterling. Ava was genuinely starting to panic. Had her boss frozen? She'd been sitting there, motionless and lost in thought, for over 10 minutes. And even more terrifying, she was smiling. Ahem. Clara finally snapped out of it, clearing her throat and schooling her expression. Report. Ava was baffled. Didn't you call me in here? Ah, yes, Ms. Sterling. As you predicted, Victor Sterling has made his move. Should we? He certainly is impatient, Clara sneered, a murderous glint in her eyes. Keep an eye on him. If he dares to touch what's mine, he can go die. Yes, ma'am. Ava acknowledged, preparing to leave. Wait. Clara stopped her again. Get in the cars, watches, and clothes he likes. Use this card and max it out. She tossed a black card onto the table in front of Ava. It was the one with a $100 million credit line she'd prepared for Jason before. If he doesn't like them, replace everything. Yesterday, at the gala, he'd said he needed gifts too, and he'd shown off the sapphire bracelet she'd given him to Brooke. She liked that, so whatever he liked, she would give him. Yes, ma'am. Ava nodded and left, still reeling from shock. Incredible. Mr. Miller is on another level. He'd refused $100 million, and now Ms. Sterling was throwing 10 times that at him in assets. So that was his strategy. Ava was deeply impressed, but also a little worried. Ms. Sterling had already sent people to track Kinsey Luo's movements. If Kinsey told Brooke what was happening with Jason, he was probably in for a world of hurt. Jason, completely unaware of this conversation, had gone back down to the dining room and was feasting on the gourmet spread. Several maids watched him cautiously. Sir, if the pie is late, Ms. Sterling might get angry, one whispered. Angry? Jason paused mid-bite of a prime steak, scoffing internally. Let her be angry. It wasn't the first time. Even prisoners had to eat, right? She expected him to cook for her on an empty stomach? He was an injured man, not a masochist. More importantly, if he gave in to her every whim, she'd lose interest, and he'd lose his value. He had to make her understand that he was not a canary to be kept in a gilded cage. Meanwhile, after leaving the Sterling estate, Kinsey Luo returned to the private hospital in Midtown. Brooke was lying in her hospital bed, staring grimly out the window, lost in thought. Even against the stark white sheets, her arrogant, beautiful face retained its proud air. But inside she was seething. It had been so long. Why wasn't Kinsey back yet? Had that old hag done something else to Jason? Kinsey stood just outside the door to her room. Looking at Brooke, she hesitated, unsure if she should go in. She had seen the intimacy between Clara and Jason. She was afraid that if she told Brooke, she wouldn't be able to handle it. Even though Brooke always insisted she could never like Jason, as her best friend, Kinsey knew her better than anyone. She was the most stubborn person in all of New York City. She said she didn't care, but she hadn't had a sip of water since she got back yesterday. And she still claimed she didn't care about Jason? Did you get the things I asked for? Sure enough, before she could even push the door open, Brooke's voice drifted out. Several bodyguards nodded. Yes, Ms. Lynn, the $100 million worth of luxury cars, villas, and designer watches you requested. We've purchased them all. In a single day, their boss had spent a fortune. The properties and vehicles were the best on the market. Strangely, another powerful buyer had been competing with them all day, driving up the prices. They couldn't understand it. The Lynn family wasn't short on assets. Why was she buying all this? Good. Brooke glanced at the purchase documents, her foul mood easing slightly. She'd never cared much for material things. She had assumed that Jason, as the last of the Miller line, wouldn't be short on cash, just like her. That's why she'd never given him anything. But yesterday, he'd said he liked money. Why didn't he just say so sooner? Money was the one thing she had in abundance. After she got him out of the Sterling estate this time, Clara would probably turn the city upside down looking for him. Hiding him at her family's country estate should work. Kinsey. As Brooke was thinking, she turned and saw Kinsey standing at the door. Her eyes lit up. Well, you're back. What did Jason say? Her voice was calm, her expression confident. Yesterday, Jason had been willing to hurt himself for her. She was certain he would choose to leave Clara. Kinsey hesitated. The estate is under heavy guard. I didn't have a chance to get him out. I figured as much. That woman is manipulative, Brooke said, unsurprised. Did Jason leave a way to contact him? Kinsey's expression was evasive, her eyes darting away. Well, she opened her mouth, about to pull the note from her medical kit, when her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from the Stockings. The moment Kinsey saw the name, her hand shot back from the kit, and she picked up her phone. The message read, Ms. Luo, Mr. Sterling requests that you return weekly to change his dressings. The message was brief, but Kinsey's heart pounded. He'd done it. He had actually convinced Clara to let him get weekly medical care. Kinsey bit her lip, her mind racing. She didn't know what price Jason had paid, but remembering his injuries, she knew it must have been immense. Kinsey, what are you looking at? From the bed, Brooke watched her friend's expression, her crimson eyes narrowing. Something was off about Kinsey. That blush. It looked like she was crushing on someone. They had known each other since they were children, and she had never seen Kinsey look like this. Nothing, Kinsey denied, shaking her head. Jason didn't have a chance to give me anything, but I'll be back in a week for a follow-up. Maybe I can get something then. She chose to respect Jason's wishes. Of course, there was a selfish part of her in that decision, too. He had said he was giving his contact information only to her, so she shouldn't give it to Brooke. Nothing at all. A flash of anger crossed Brooke's face. Kinsey nodded. Brooke, he's going through a lot. I've seen how hard he's trying and how much he cares about you. Those injuries, they were all from Clara. Kinsey looked directly at Brooke. She had always been on Brooke's side, but seeing Jason give his heart only to be hurt again and again. She couldn't stand by any longer, even for her best friend. He's a good guy. You should treasure him, she said, her gaze intense. She picked up her medical kit. I'll go back in a week for his follow-up. I'll let you know what happens then. I hope Brooke learns to treat him better, she thought. If she doesn't appreciate him, someone else will. As Kinsey walked out, Brooke was left stunned on the bed. What was she talking about? Brooke frowned, her glamorous face contorted in confusion. Why was Kinsey so defensive of Jason today? She had sent her to treat Jason, and this is what she brought back. Brooke remembered Kinsey's words on the phone before. If you get tired of him, let me play with him for a while. A chill washed over Brooke's face. She had thought Kinsey was joking. Could it be that she had actually fallen for her man? I want to know everything that happened when Kinsey Luo entered the Sterling estate today. Crash! The glass in her hand shattered against the floor. Brooke bit her lip, the movement aggravating the wound on her abdomen, causing blood to seep through her bandages. Her eyes turned a furious, scarlet red. Why did people always try to take what was hers? She would never allow it. Back at the Sterling estate, Jason took his sweet time, finishing his meal before finally heading to the kitchen. The master chef Clara had hired had been waiting for over half an hour and was about to fall asleep. Sir, what do you need? The chef asked nervously when Jason entered. The lady of the house was famously ill-tempered. This young man was bold, making her wait so long. Yeah, can you separate these eggs for me? And get the rest of the... Jason, full and satisfied, showed no airs. He casually tied on an apron and got to work, directing a few maids to help with simple tasks. In truth, they couldn't help much. He had specifically learned to bake because Brooke had said she liked desserts. He made blueberry pie over 1,000 times before she had grudgingly given him a passing grade. He was an expert, moving with a fluid, practiced ease that left the maids with nothing to do. They watched his handsome, focused profile, their expressions turning dreamy. He's so handsome, even more so with an apron. Total husband material. With a body like that, no wonder Ms. Sterling likes him. And he can cook. He deserves to be rich. The young maids gathered at the kitchen doorway, chattering excitedly, their eyes sparkling. Jason soaked it in. He wasn't a saint. He enjoyed the praise. But none of them noticed the figure that had silently appeared at the entrance to the kitchen. Clara had asked for a blueberry pie. 40 minutes had passed, and not only was there no pie, but she couldn't even smell anything baking. She came downstairs to see what the hell he was doing, only to be met with this scene. Jason was the center of attention, surrounded by a gaggle of young, pretty maids. And unlike when he was with her, his face was relaxed, his smile easy and friendly. The sight was a dagger in Clara's heart. So polite to the staff, yet so wary of her. He had some nerve. From now on, no other women are allowed near him. Clara bit out, her cold eyes sweeping over Ava. Send all these maids away from the estate. Her prey, wagging its tail for others? Unacceptable. As her property, he could only be close to her, could only look at her. Yes, ma'am. Ava felt the icy aura radiating from her boss, her face breaking out in a nervous sweat. She knew the maids hadn't done anything wrong, but this was already merciful by Ms. Sterling's standards. If it weren't for their years of service, anyone who got this close to her possessions would be lucky to stay in New York at all. "Bring him to me," Clara commanded, her gaze fixed on Jason's busy form in the kitchen. She wanted to see for herself how a blueberry pie could take 40 minutes. Was he cooking or deliberately starving her? "Yes, ma'am." Ava walked nervously toward the kitchen. Just then, Jason's voice drifted out. "Hey, I was wondering, does her boss have any particular thing she hates or loves?" he asked, his back to the door, addressing the crowd of maids. They looked at him, confused. "Sir, why do you ask?" Ava paused mid-stride. Outside, Clara frowned. "It's my first time cooking for her. I'm afraid of messing something up and making her unhappy, so I'm taking it slow," Jason explained. As he spoke, he watched Clara's reflection out of the corner of his eye. A bead of cold sweat trickled down his forehead, betraying his calm demeanor. His sixth sense was scarily accurate. In the few days he'd been at the estate, his senses had sharpened to a razor's edge. He'd felt Clara's presence the moment she appeared. As a captive, his only move was to placate the monster before she went on a rampage. As expected, his words made the maids gasp in admiration. "I can't believe how thoughtful he is. So handsome, and so attentive to Ms. Sterling. Let's write it down for you. Get some paper." The maids scurried to document everything for him. Ava stopped in her tracks. Even Clara's expression softened for a fraction of a second. A strange sense of pleasure bloomed in her chest at the thought of him caring about her. "Ms. Sterling, should I still send the maids away?" Ava asked quietly, watching her boss's face. "Have I ever needed to repeat an order?" Clara's lips curved into a pleased, dangerous smile. Follow the original plan. Since he claimed to be doing it for her, to be so concerned with the details of her life, then she had even more reason not to allow others near him. He was willing. Therefore, his world should contain only her. That way, no one could ever come between them. "Tell him that when he's finished, he is to bring it to my room." "Personally," Clara murmured, her deep, piercing eyes glinting with a bone-chilling coldness. She drew out the word, personally, her voice laced with a playful, predatory tone. If he was going to be so attentive, then she should give him a little reward. With that, she turned and glided barefoot back up to her bedroom on the second floor. In the kitchen, Jason felt Clara's presence disappear and let out a sigh of relief. Thank God, she hadn't come in to inspect his work. He hadn't even started on the damn pie. "Sir, we've got it all written down for you." Just then, the maids returned, shoving a thick stack of papers into his hands. Jason stared, stunned. The weight of the stack in his arms seemed to make him sink. This is all of it?" he asked in disbelief, scanning the endless list of rules and prohibitions. "Ms. Sterling hates sugar, steak, and being touched. She has misophobia and likes white rose chocolate. She likes roses and hates Brooklyn. When relaxing at home, she doesn't like to wear that. So looking down from above or up from below is forbidden. Forbidden to bring strangers into the villa. Hundreds, maybe thousands of rules." Just a single glance made Jason's scalp tingle. Was she the final boss in some kind of twisted video game? Don't touch this, don't touch that, or you'll be killed. He was going to lose his mind. And the worst part was, he had already broken every single rule. No wonder the maids were so shocked. And he couldn't look at her from above or below. That explained the flash of pink he'd seen when he was helping her undress earlier. He thought he was imagining things. So, she really was going commando. He had been living on the edge of a knife this whole time. If she doesn't wear that, what about the bodyguards? Jason asked, still confused, glancing at the stoic male guards in the main hall. Is Sir getting jealous? The maids misunderstood, their faces lighting up as if they'd stumbled upon a juicy secret. Don't worry, sir. Ms. Sterling only does that when she's sleeping. She dresses properly when seeing outsiders. Jason's eyes lit up. So that meant there were no bodyguards on the second floor. Could he find a way to escape from up there? His suddenly intense, shining eyes were misinterpreted again by the maids. Is he thinking about that in the middle of the day? 18-year-old boys really are full of energy. They blushed, their gazes drifting down toward his waist. What were you looking at? Jason felt their weird stares and quickly turned away. He was seriously starting to believe everyone in this entire estate was insane, contaminated by Clara's madness. Sprite, the outside world doesn't know about my contract marriage with Clara, right? He turned aside, pressing the comms chip behind his ear when the maids weren't looking. His main concern was Brooke. If that psycho found out, and if Kinsey told her, she would probably storm the Sterling estate and tear him to shreds. Relax, sir. This is the Sterling family's business. Who do you think could leak it besides Clara herself? Sprite's teasing voice came through, punctuated by the crunch of an apple. Jason gritted his teeth. I told you not to call me sir. While he was here suffering, she was taking it easy. He was docking her pay. Definitely docking her pay. But Sprite's words worried him. If Clara deliberately leaked the news, things could get ugly. He had to find a way to keep her stable. He remembered his mother, a brilliant doctor, once mentioning a unique, inherited method for treating cryotoxins when he was a child. The formula was in the inheritance she'd left him, which he hadn't been able to retrieve yet. If he could get it, maybe he could help alleviate Clara's suffering. Lost in thought, Jason didn't notice a maid furtively approaching him from behind. What are you doing? Jason frowned, eyeing her. Her expression was strange, and he didn't recognize her. A sense of alarm rose in him. Ava frowned too, turned to look. But before anyone could react, the maid, realizing she'd been spotted, whipped out a lighter and flicked it on near the open gas line connection. Shit move. Jason's eyes widened. As the flame erupted, he threw open the kitchen door, tackling Ava and pulling her out with him. Boom! The explosion tore through the kitchen behind them. Flames shot out, and the glass door shattered, spraying Jason's back with countless shards. As broken glass rained down, the glint of a dagger flashed toward his face. Jason reacted instantly, throwing up his hands to block the attack. He grabbed the blade, his palms screaming in protest as the cold steel sliced into them. The attacker was the same maid, her face a mask of grim determination. What the hell? You said the Sterling estate was secure. What is this? Jason bit out, his face flush with pain and effort. The woman was fighting like a maniac. Catching the blade had nearly cost him his fingers, and blood was now dripping from his hands into his eyes. I'm sorry, the maid grunted, then pushed with all her might. Help me, damn it! Jason yelled. The blade slid another inch, stopping just short of his eye. Sir! Ava finally snapped out of her shock and kicked the woman hard in the stomach. The maid stumbled back. As the estate's bodyguards swarmed in, she turned to run. Get back here. Jason wasn't letting her go. He shot out a hand, grabbed her ankle, and yanked, sending her crashing to the floor. Before she could even process what happened, Jason had her pinned. You attack me and think you can just run away? Hold her. Jason's eyes were bloodshot with rage, his fresh wounds throbbing. Who the hell had he pissed off now? First an explosion, now a knife attack. If he hadn't been quick, he'd be dead. He was going to find out who sent her. Yes, sir. The bodyguards were stunned. They hadn't even made a move, and their new master had already subdued the attacker. Their expressions shifted from skepticism to respect. They thought he was just some pretty boy with no muscle. We have an internal breach. Assistant Ava, please inform Ms. Sterling immediately, one of the guards said, tying up the maid while addressing the still-dazed Ava. Ava looked at Jason with a complex expression. He reacted so fast. He even saved me, after how I treated him. For the first time, she thought that maybe, just maybe, her boss had chosen the right person. All right, look after things here, she instructed, then turned and headed for Clara's room. Hey, you don't need to tell Clara. I can handle this. Jason protested, but the guards ignored him. By the time he could try to stop her, Ava was already heading up the stairs. Upstairs, in the bedroom, Clara had been lounging on the bed, savoring the events of the day. Suddenly, she heard the boom from downstairs. She sat bolt upright, her eyes flashing with cold fury. After all these years of ruthless efficiency, someone still dared to cause trouble on her turf? Knock, knock, knock. A maid rushed to her door. Enter, Clara said. The maid burst in, her words making Clara's brow twitch violently. MS. Sterling. I think, sir. He blew up the kitchen. The maid was trembling. She had been cleaning on the second floor and had seen everything. What did you say? Clara thought she'd misheard. Brooke had said his blueberry pie was delicious. He should know how to cook. How could he possibly blow up her kitchen? The estate was built with the highest safety standards in the city. How careless could he be? Was this his idea of a protest? It was a maid. She deliberately lit the gas line. That's what caused the explosion. The maid explained hastily, out of breath. Clara's expression turned glacial. Downstairs. Now, she was going to see for herself who had such a death wish. Ms. Sterling. Ava had just reached the top of the stairs when she met Clara coming out of her room. She quickly lowered her head. Clara shot her a look that could freeze fire before continuing down. By now, the chaos downstairs had been contained. The Sterling staff was well-trained. The entire incident had lasted barely a minute. But the luxurious kitchen was a charred, blackened wreck. The maid was pinned to the floor, while Jason sat to the side, his face pale as his hands were being bandaged. The floor was littered with shattered glass and debris. Ms. Sterling. The staff rushed to lay down a carpet in front of her. Clara walked slowly down, barefoot. I was starting to think you blew a hole in the kitchen as an escape route, she said, her tone light. Seeing him still there had put her in a decent enough mood to tease him. But when her eyes fell on the bandages on his hands, a brutal, murderous rage flashed in her gaze. Daring to touch her person. Someone was tired of living. Jason didn't even look at her, his voice dripping with resentment. Didn't you say that no one would be able to hurt me here? Is this your guarantee? He'd been injured constantly for days. Her promises were worthless. Clara opened her mouth to speak. She didn't like his tone, but he was right. She owed him for this. Her little pet was angry. The Sterling estate was a fortress. No outsider could get in. But this maid, she had been with her for years. A traitor. Don't worry. I'll make her give you an explanation, Clara said, a bloodthirsty smile gracing her lips. She had said no one was allowed to touch him. If they didn't listen, they would have to die. A bodyguard immediately brought a chair for her. Talk. Who sent you? Clara sank into it, crossing her long, pale legs as she looked down at the maid on the floor. The flash of her white skin was so arresting that even Jason couldn't help but glance over. This woman was terrifying, like a succubus. The maid on the floor trembled under the weight of Clara's murderous intent. She looked up, gave Jason a strange look, then lowered her head again. Ms. Sterling, I have failed you. No one sent me. Fear was etched on her face, but she'd been paid. If she didn't follow the script, there would be retaliation. Then, to Jason's astonishment, she looked at him. This has nothing to do with Mr. Miller, and Brooke Lynn didn't send me. Her words fell into a dead silence. The lazy aura around Clara instantly solidified into suffocating violence. Her icy gaze snapped to Jason. Ava and the bodyguard stared wide-eyed. The maid's clumsy denial was practically a confession. Jason was completely blindsided. What are you talking about? This was a setup, a complete frame-up. Jason's face was livid, but Clara's eyes were growing colder by the second. Jason, don't tell me you know her. Just a moment ago, she'd felt she should compensate him for his injury. But now, it was unclear whether he was trying to escape or was in on it with this woman. A cruel smile twisted Clara's lips. It seemed he still wasn't being obedient enough. I don't know her, Jason insisted, feeling the heat of Clara's stare on his back. He wished he'd strangled the maid himself. Her blatant, clumsy denial was impossible to defend against. Sir, Shut up. The maid tried to speak again, but Jason snatched a dagger and pressed it to her throat. Say one more word, and I'll kill you right now. He couldn't let her keep talking. The monster he just managed to calm down was about to go insane again. Oof. But Clara just let out a soft snort from behind him and suddenly grabbed his wrist. This is the first time I've seen you like this. Interesting. She laughed a low, intrigued sound as she leaned over him, her other hand caressing his cheek. But her eyes were filled with ice. Clara, you have to believe me, Jason said, his voice low and raspy, feeling the violence radiating from her. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. She was smiling, but it was terrifying. She raised her red lips. Of course, I believe you. However, a scarlet light swirled in her eyes. She tightened her grip on his hand, forcing the dagger in his grasp closer and closer to the maid's throat. Her cold breath whispered against his ear. You kill her, and I'll believe you. Besides, she hurt you. This is your compensation. She spoke casually, her low voice a murmur in his ear, but the dagger had already drawn a thin line of blood on the maid's neck. Clara! Jason's pupils shrank, his breath catching in his throat. Kill her, or I kill you. Choose. Clara's voice was a chilling threat and a seductive whisper, giving him no way out. You're insane. Jason gritted his teeth, fighting her control with all his might. The dagger swerved, sinking into the maid's abdomen with a sickening squelch. Warm blood splattered across his face. He looked up to see the maid's expression of agony and shock. His own hands were covered in blood, as if he'd become a demon. Cold sweat poured down his face. He clenched his fist, unable to bear it any longer. Let go of me, he roared, shoving her hand away, his face a mask of fury. A psycho. Clara was a goddamn psycho. A human life meant nothing to her. If he hadn't deflected the blow, that knife would have slit the maid's throat. It wasn't that he was afraid to kill, but if he did, Clara would have leverage over him forever, and he would never escape her grasp. Pushed away, a sated, bloodthirsty smile spread across Clara's stunningly cold face. The taste of blood. Aren't you going to try it? I'm sure you'll grow to like it. She looked down at the writhing maid. Drag her out. Find out who's pulling her strings. Leave her body on Brooke Lynn's doorstep. She took a handkerchief from Ava and meticulously wiped her slender fingers. Men immediately moved to clean up the scene. After a moment, Clara looked up again. Who let her bring a dagger in here today? Ms. Sterling. It was my oversight. Ava bowed her head, her body trembling. Clara didn't even glance at her. Go receive your punishment. And all the maids on duty today are fired. Banish them from New York. She hated other women speaking to him. And now that one of them had a questionable background, none could be allowed to stay. From this day on, there will be no more female staff at the Sterling estate. Her casually spoken words made the remaining maids drop to their knees in terror. Even Ava's face paled. Yes, ma'am. She bowed her head as bodyguards came forward and escorted the maids out of the villa. Psycho, Jason thought, staring coldly at Clara. But that one look made Clara's eyes narrow dangerously. She hated that look, hated his fear, his wariness. It was his fault for being tangled up with Brooke, for leaving notes for her to come rescue him. All she'd done was ask him to kill someone. If it had been anyone else, she'd have had them taken upstate and left for dead already. And he dared to look at her like that? Before Jason could react, her fingers clamped onto his jaw, the pressure agonizing. Their account is settled, kid. Now let's talk about us. Clara stared into his eyes, her red lips curving into a cruel smile. You blew up my kitchen, and you still haven't cleared yourself of colluding with Brooke. How are you going to compensate me for those two things? Ms. Sterling, how would you like me to compensate you? Jason flinched, pulling away from her grip. He was developing a genuine phobia of this woman. As long as she didn't touch him, he'd pay whatever she wanted. Seeing his expression, a knowing smile spread across Clara's face. Simple. The kitchen renovation plus one human life comes to a total of $100 million. And if you can't pay, you know what I want. Puffed. The water Jason had just sipped sprayed out of his mouth. You what? He'd been trying to calm his nerves, but Clara always had something more insane waiting for him. This woman was supposed to be a cool, aloof heiress. Why was she so obsessed with his body? She was a pervert, an absolute pervert. What? If you don't want to do that, how do you expect to pay me back? Clara cornered him, as if she held his life in her hands. The bodyguards immediately lowered their heads and melted away, leaving the two of them alone. No. Jason backed away. Clara, your idea of extortion is terrible. You blow up one kitchen and demand $100 million. Even a shakedown required a little finesse. This woman didn't even bother to pretend. Oh, maybe it's not worth $100 million, but that's what I want. You're not going to pay. Clara dropped all pretense, fiddling with the remote in her hand, a punitive glint in her eyes. Haggling with me? She purred, her voice a silken threat. Jason didn't have time to react before a jolt of pain made his face go white. So have you thought it through? Clara's lips curled into a cold smirk. She leaned over him, her chin tilted, her eyes full of certainty. She didn't understand. She was in no way inferior to Brooke. Was sleeping with her really such a loss for him? Ms. Sterling, I'm not paying. Jason's face was red with defiance. He hadn't done anything wrong. Why should he pay $100 million? His head could roll, his blood could spill, but he wasn't giving up his money. I didn't hire that maid. Believe it or not, I don't care. If you want to zap me, then go ahead and kill me today. With that, he shoved her away and turned to leave. Clara's eyes turned to ice. Stop. She was only asking him to pay her back by giving her a child. He wouldn't even do that? Did he hate her that much? Or was he saving himself for Brooke? If you dare walk out that door today, I will immediately kill every relative you have left, including Brooke, Clara said, a murderous fury rising within her, her eyes shot with red. Relatives? Jason sneered. Clara, what are you even trying to do? He had no family left that he cared about. He wouldn't lose sleep over Leo or his uncle. If she was going to force his hand, he'd have to reveal his identity as Mr. G sooner than planned. If you want to protect her, then go change into this. You can pay me back. Bit by bit. Clara's teeth were clenched as she thrust a beautifully wrapped gift box at him. What is this? Jason frowned and opened it. Inside lay a black suit with a plunging V-neck and an open back. There was also a pair of fluffy black wolf ears and a black collar. Jason's pupils dilated. Clara, are you insane, or am I? You expect me to wear this? He thought he was pretty worldly from his time online, but there were levels to this. This woman was in a league of her own. You won't wear it? Then I suppose you want me to help you. Clara smirked, reaching for him. I'll wear it. Jason yelped. Fine, he'd wear it. But as soon as the investigation cleared him, he was going to make this woman pay. I'll change in the bathroom. He grabbed the box and headed for the restroom. Right here, Clara said, pointing to the spot beside her. You. Jason felt like he was dealing with a sex maniac. Clara, I don't know what you're thinking, but this will only make me resent you more. He turned his back to her and began to change. His cold, distant attitude made Clara freeze. She wanted to say something, but he was already facing away from her. Did he hate her that much? He was the one who colluded with Brooke first. If he would just submit to her, she wouldn't have to do this. Clara's eyes narrowed, a wave of melancholy washing over her. But her smile turned to ice. Don't worry. Sooner or later, I'll make you give me a child willingly. He wanted to run to Brooke. The more he tried to escape, the tighter she would hold on. The man she had chosen would die by her side, or not at all. Clara pressed her lips together and turned toward her study. When she was young, she used to go hunting with her grandfather. Once, a black panther tried to attack her, and she'd hunted it down. Felines were proud and refused to submit. She had used countless tools to tame it. With Jason, she hadn't even started using her real tools yet. This could be fun. A bloodthirsty smile touched her lips as she disappeared into the study. Jason heard her leave and glanced over. Why did she suddenly leave? Did she have a change of heart? He wondered, frowning as he put on the ridiculous fluffy wolf ears. Sprite, did you hear that? What's the status on the maid? Who sent her? He had deliberately activated his comms chip, so Sprite should have been listening. She can investigate faster than Ava. I've got it. It wasn't Brooke. It was Leo Miller, Sprite replied instantly. Jason let out a breath of relief, but then confusion set in. Are you sure? Leo Miller? After nearly dying at his hands, he still had the guts to come after him? And how did Leo have the resources to bribe such a loyal maid? Positive, but I haven't identified who's backing him yet, Sprite said. Jason nodded. As long as it wasn't Brooke. That meant he could explain himself, and maybe the psycho wouldn't have a reason to torture him anymore. With that thought, he called out, silently stopped short. Clara was standing in front of him, having changed into a black outfit with black high heels. At her waist was a black utility belt. She moved with a slow, deliberate grace. The tight black leather suit clung to her body, accentuating every curve. Her slightly upturned red lips were like a vibrant, bloody rose blooming amongst thorns, dangerous and suffocating. Clara, what are you doing? Jason swallowed hard, his eyes catching sight of the black leather pouch at her hip, filled with an assortment of gleaming tools and several beautiful, ornate daggers. A jolt went through him. He had a very bad feeling about this. Calm down. Why are you holding a whip? A dangerous smile played on Clara's lips. What am I doing? Why? I'm going to teach you how to be a good husband. A fleck of blood stained her lip, vividly red and beautiful. The metallic tang in her mouth only made her eyes shine with a wilder light. Come here, she whispered, beckoning with a single finger. You're being irrational. There was no way Jason would submit. Under normal circumstances, maybe, but right now, this woman was clearly out for blood. Being called irrational only made Clara's eyes narrow, but she didn't lash out. Then you want me to come to you? She purred, her fingers coiling around the leather whip, a coldness emanating from her. MMS. Sterling. Sir, Ava stood nervously to the side, trying to plead for him. She had just dealt with the maid and returned to find this scene. Was her boss trying to discipline Jason or herself? You want to take his place? A glacial coldness passed through Clara's eyes. Notify everyone in New York. Find out who sent that maid. I don't care if it was Brooke or anyone else. Find them and kill them. Ava wanted to say more, but Clara cut her off. Seeing the absolute zero in her boss's eyes, Ava didn't dare speak again. Sir, I'm going to investigate right now, she said, giving Jason a significant look. You have to hold on. Jason understood her silent message and felt a surge of gratitude. His heroic rescue hadn't been in vain. After Ava left, the vast hall fell silent, leaving only him and Clara. The icy, murderous aura instantly descended again. She's gone. Now, we can play our game, Clara said, her eyes, like a predator's, locking onto Jason with a crazed glint. She lifted a high-heeled foot and began to advance on him. Jason's pupils contracted. Clara, I need to make this clear. I did not collude with Brooke to bring that woman here. If you refuse to believe me, then what's the point of us being husband and wife? He backed away, his face grim. Clara just laughed, a cold, sharp sound. You looked at 6 other women today. I'm already being merciful by not killing them. A hint of jealousy colored her voice. The way those maids had looked at her, she'd want to claw their eyes out. She hated it when others touched her property. But what angered her most was Jason. He had lied to her. This was the 3rd time. You're crazy. The whip snaked out, wrapping around his neck. He choked, his face turning red as he grabbed at it. He'd had enough. This woman was impossible to reason with. Her possessiveness was a sickness. You dare curse me? Clara's brow furrowed in annoyance. She pulled a silver chain from her belt and moved to fasten it around his wrist. That was the last straw for Jason. Let go. Clara, what do you think I am, a dog? We had an agreement. You can't hurt me. You broke the rules. Our contract is void. His face was dark with fury. He ripped her hand away, and before she could react, he turned and sprinted for the stairs. Screw your contract. I'm done. This woman didn't even see him as human. He hadn't been wandering the estate for the past 2 days for fun. He had mapped out the entire second floor. There were cameras, but a few rooms had blind spots. And most importantly, there were no bodyguards on the second floor. Clara had also sent the first floor guards away. This was his best chance. He was fast. By the time he crashed through the door of an empty bedroom, Clara was still processing what had happened. I made it. Jason's eyes lit up. He slammed the door and locked it, quickly surveying the room. It was one of the few without surveillance, lavishly decorated, with a single, heavy window. He rushed to it, only to find it locked shut. Damn it, Clara, are you serious? Who does something so twisted? Locking the windows, leaving him no escape route. Downstairs, Clara had finally recovered. A prey that runs. This is getting more and more exciting. Jason, what other surprises do you have for me? In the darkness, she laughed softly, slapping the whip against her palm as she began to walk slowly, deliberately, up the stairs. Let's see where you're hiding. Her cool, haunting voice echoed through the house, getting closer. Click, clack, click. The sound of her heels on the stairs was a drumbeat counting down his time. Jason's heart hammered his chest. Her footsteps stopped right outside his door. Foundyou. Clara stared at the faint footprints on the carpet, a wicked, beautiful smile spreading across her face. Knock, knock. Open the door now, and I promise I won't hurt you. Jason froze. Clara, do you really expect me to believe you? If she wasn't going to hurt him, what were the tools for? He grabbed a heavy armchair and hurled it at the window. He had to get out of here. Today. Crash. The glass finally shattered. A wave of relief washed over Jason as he looked down at the grounds below. From outside the door, Clara's calm voice turned to ice. Jason, if you dare to run, I will kill Brooke and every relative you have. Relatives? Jason, who was busy tying bedsheets into a rope, let out a cold laugh. If you're going to kill them, you'd better get every last Miller. Otherwise, I'll lose all respect for you. Threaten him with that? Did she think he cared? 1 dead Miller was a win for him, 2 was a bonus. Jason. Her voice was now a furious roar. You think you can escape? She sneered. Just as he was about to lower the sheets, a prickling sense of danger crawled up his spine. What do you mean? Before he could finish, he felt something cold press against the back of his neck. The barrel of a black handgun was pressed to his skull. The game of cat and mouse is over. Clara's pleasant voice drifted from behind him. At the same time, Ava, having left the estate, had mobilized the full force of the Sterling family's network in New York. Find everything on that maid. Her entire history, every person she's contacted recently. Everything. Her voice was cold, surprising the operatives who received the order. She was known as the kindest of Ms. Sterling's assistants. What are you waiting for? Go. Seeing them hesitate, the coldness in Ava's eyes deepened. This incident was her mistake. If Jason died because of her negligence, she would never forgive herself. She could see that Ms. Sterling genuinely cared for him, in her own twisted way. Yes, ma'am. The operatives scattered, and within minutes, hundreds of black Maybachs were converging on the city center, a move that sent shockwaves through New York's elite. What's going on with the Sterlings? I heard that new boy toy of Clara Sterling's got attacked. She's furious and has ordered a citywide manhunt for the person behind it. That Jason Miller kid? She's mobilizing the entire city for a nobody like him. This time, I think she might be serious. Gossip ignited across the city's high society. Jason, the nobody, was suddenly an object of jealousy and a new kind of respect. Just a scratch on the hand, and Clara Sterling was willing to burn the city down for him. What was so special about him? Back at the Sterling villa, Jason froze at the window, the makeshift rope still in his hands. Behind him stood a woman in a black mask adorned with a spider lily, a cold handgun pressed firmly against his head. Clara, you win, Jason gritted out, clenching his fists. He'd assumed the second floor was clear of guards. He had been wrong. What's this? Blew up my kitchen, smashed my window. Where did you think you were going? The locked door swung open, and Clara strolled in, a smirk on her face. Jason said nothing, his face a stony mask. Clara glanced at the masked woman, who immediately melted back into the shadows. Did you really think that pack of useless guards downstairs was all I had for protection? She laughed. She had survived countless attempts on her life. The moment she realized everyone in her family, except for her grandmother, wanted her dead, she had prepared for anything. You can't escape, little pet. The game is over. Now, how should I punish you? The whip in her hand finally made contact, caressing his cheek. Admit you colluded with Brooke Lynn, promise you'll never do it again, and come back to the bedroom with me now. If you do that, I might consider forgiving you. That was her final offer. Jason just laughed coldly. I told you I didn't do it. Why are you so determined to force a confession out of me? If Ava's investigation proves I'm innocent, will you apologize to me? He stared her straight in the eye, his gaze unwavering. The bedroom? He wouldn't have gone before, and now his opinion of this violent, unstable woman had hit rock bottom. He knew exactly what she wanted him for in there. If he gave in and she got pregnant, his value would plummet to zero. Hearing his stubborn refusal, even when facing punishment, Clara's eyes blazed. Still defiant? Since you won't bow your head, then you leave me no choice. There. Does it hurt? She whispered, her breath like a fragrant flower as she gripped his chin, her eyes turning red. She had given him a choice. All he had to do was submit. She saw him nod slightly, and a crazed look entered her eyes. Good. Pain is the only way you'll learn. A pain so deep you'll never forget this lesson. Just bear with it. It will be over soon. Her beautiful face was close to his ear, her lips twisted into a bloodthirsty smile. Clara, that's enough. Jason finally roared, grabbing the whip as it swung down, his other hand secretly closing around the dagger he'd hidden earlier. He couldn't take it anymore. The woman was completely insane. Clara's expression changed, her eyes narrowing. You're yelling at me? A dark line appeared on Jason's forehead as the sheer absurdity of her response hit him. This woman's brain was wired all wrong. Clara just stared at him. It's not that I don't believe you. It's that the boy who cried wolf has lied too many times. What reason have you given me to trust you? And what if Ava comes back and proves I had nothing to do with it? Jason shot back, his voice steady. Did she think she was the only one who could dish out punishment? He wanted to know if she'd face any consequences for being wrong. Clara's lips curved into a victorious smile. Simple. If I'm wrong, I'll pour your damn tea and apologize. She didn't believe for a second he could resist colluding with Brooke Lynn. You said it. You better not regret this. A sudden light flashed in Jason's eyes. He could hold out a little longer. The storm had passed, the sun was out, and he felt like he was back in the game. Clara saw the look on his face, the way he was anticipating something, and a flicker of unease crossed her features. Jason, think carefully. If you're the one who's wrong, what kind of punishment will you face? No need to think. She's already here. Jason's eyes were fixed on the window, a mysterious smile playing on his lips. Puzzled, Clara frowned and followed his gaze. Outside, a black Maybach screeched to a halt in the driveway of the Sterling estate. Ava bolted from the car, clutching a slim laptop, and hurried inside. She was shouting before she even reached the stairs. Mom, I found it. Ava was out of breath, having rushed back without stopping, terrified that her boss might, in a fit of pique, simply erase her new husband from existence. But when she reached the top of the stairs, she froze. Clara and Jason were staring at her, their eyes wide. Clara had one hand cupping Jason's face, her body pressed so close it was almost an embrace. Her other hand rested on his waist. Jason's face was flushed a strange, feverish red. Ava's own face immediately turned scarlet as her mind went to the obvious conclusion. I'm so sorry. My mistake, please continue. What have I done? She thought, mortified. I thought they were about to get into a fight, but they were about to get into it, bursting in like that. She was interrupting the future of the Sterling dynasty. Clara and Jason just stared at her, baffled, before quickly pulling apart as realization dawned. Get back here. Clara snapped, her cheeks now tinged with pink. What on earth was that girl thinking? Fine, she had been thinking about something like that, but they hadn't started yet. Ava stammered, shuffling back into the room, head bowed. Clara's eyes fell on the laptop. You have results, I assume? Jason, have you decided how you'll accept your punishment? She tilted her chin up, her beautiful face a mask of smug certainty. Ava's next words made that expression freeze and crack. Edo, and this has absolutely nothing to do with Brooke Lynn. Or Mr. Miller. What did you say? Clara snatched the laptop from Ava's hands, her elegant brow furrowed. As she scanned the evidence on the screen, her cold, arrogant demeanor slowly dissolved. Disbelief replaced it. Then, a wave of pure pleasure washed over her. She didn't even notice the smile that escaped the corner of her mouth. He really hadn't been working with Brooke. He hadn't lied to her this time. She had been wrong. A flicker of something soft, moved in Clara's eyes. The anger she'd felt was inexplicably replaced by a strange sense of satisfaction. She told herself it was simply the contentment of having her prey back under her control. Ava, watching from the side, rolled her eyes. The boss was clearly ecstatic, but had to keep up the Ice Queen act. Clara caught her expression and shot her a warning glare. Now, it was Jason's turn to look down on her, a triumphant smirk on his face. Miss Sterling, I believe you said something about pouring my tea and apologizing. You're not going to go back on your word, are you? He watched her, his eyes daring her to deny it. He was half expecting her to lash out, but instead, a slow, beautiful smile spread across Clara's face. Don't you worry, little one, she purred. I never break a promise. I can't pour it for you. I can even feed it to you. Clara drew out the words, her smile dazzling, while her fingers traced a light, teasing path over his chest. As long as he hadn't been planning to run away with Brooklyn, she'd meant what she said. Anything he wanted in New York, she would give him. Her intense gaze, however, made his skin crawl. He instinctively pulled his shirt tighter. It felt like she was looking at him like a meal. Also, Jason pressed on, you whip me again? My medical bills are going to be at least $5 million, and I'll need the Luo family's top specialist to treat me. If she could demand $100 million for a kitchen, he could demand $5 million for this. This was all for emotional distress, and he couldn't stand another day in the Sterling estate. He needed Kinsey to come get him fast. He admitted he'd spoken too soon before. Being around this woman was hazardous to his health. But he would wait, of course, until after she poured his tea and apologized. Ava listened, her heart pounding. The man had the nerve to extort money from the boss. It seemed her earlier fears had been for nothing. Clara listened to all his demands, then asked a surprising question. Jason, are you looking down on me? She had expected the little gold digger to ask for something truly astronomical. But this, $100 million, she declared, for your pain and suffering. Anything less would be an insult. But first, we need to deal with the person who set you up, hurt your hand, and try to drive a wedge between us. Clara's lips, pale and almost bloodless, twisted into a chilling, eerie smile as she stared at his face. Her icy gaze dropped to the name highlighted on the laptop screen. Lau Miller. She enunciated each syllable. Jason was sure he'd misheard. Who? Leo Miller? His cousin just got stabbed and barely survived. He was probably still laid up in a hospital bed. Was he really that desperate for a death wish, sticking his nose into Clara's business? Leo Miller doesn't have the guts for this on his own, Clara said, her lips curling in a smirk. Her thoughts mirrored Jason's perfectly. Someone else is pulling the strings. Leo was just a pawn, a fall guy. He wasn't smart enough for this. Did you find out who's behind him? Clara closed the laptop and looked back at Ava. Ava winced. Not yet. The second I confirmed it wasn't him. I came straight here. The main thing was to stop the boss from killing her husband. But I guarantee I'll have a name within the hour, she added quickly, seeing Clara's expression darken. Only then did Clara look satisfied. She turned back to Jason, who was frowning in thought. I was wrong about you earlier. Once we've dealt with this, I'll keep my promise. She paused, then deliberately let her hand drift down to his stomach, her eyes glinting with amusement. Although he was coming after you, this doesn't really have anything to do with me, does it? Under the moonlight, her skin was like luminous porcelain, a stark contrast to the tight black fabric and sheer stockings that clung to her curves. Her cool voice held a seductive, almost forbidden allure. He didn't want to share a bed with her, but she had warned him. If someone in New York hurt him, she wouldn't lift a finger. Now he'd been hurt. All he had to do was bend a little, and she would get him his revenge and more. So, what do you think? She tilted her head up, her gaze hot and locked on his lips. Give me a kiss, and I'll help you settle the score. The more unwilling he was, the more fun this became. She especially loved to see him blush. Like a cute, obedient puppy, Jason almost laughed in her face. Clara, you really know how to drive a bargain. Fina, you said it yourself. One kiss, and you'll take care of Leo Miller for me, right? He looked at her crimson lips, and a sly, mysterious glint appeared in his eyes. Yes, Clara purred, her eyes narrowing. Beside them, Ava was blushing so hard she felt her cheeks would catch fire. She quietly backed out of the room. Who am I? Where am I? And to think she'd been worried about them. She was the clown here. She was out. For good. After Ava left, Jason's expression grew stranger. She said a kiss, but she didn't specify how, did she? Well, he couldn't be blamed for this. What are you doing? Clara asked, standing her ground as he stepped toward her her eyes scanning him up and down. She watched as the handsome man slowly closed his eyes and leaned in. Claire's face flushed, and she swallowed hard. Her heart started to pound erratically, and she instinctively closed her eyes too. Damn it, am I losing my mind? When did my pulse get so unsteady? She cursed herself internally, but she didn't see the cunning flash in Jason's eyes as he drew close. The moment he saw her eyes were shut, he opened his mouth and sank his teeth into the pale, exposed column of her neck. The coppery taste of blood filled his mouth. NGH. Clara's brow furrowed in a pained grunt, and her expression turned glacial. Jason, you're learning. She snapped her eyes open, her gaze as cold as ice. Learn a new trick, have we? Biting now. She'd told him to kiss her. Was a kiss not thrilling enough for him? Thanks, Miss Sterling. I learned from a best. Jason had struck and was about to pull back, but a soft hand clamped down on the back of his neck. Caught off guard, he was pressed into the warm, soft curve of her throat. Before he could react, her playful, mocking voice whispered in his ear. Since you like biting so much, why don't you do it for a little longer? Harder. Don't disappoint me. Her voice was a low, breathless rasp. I like this kind of pressure. For her, only the slice of a blade against a beating pulse, only blood, could paint the kind of love that was carved in a bone. This little bit of pain was nowhere near enough. Clara's eager, panting breaths washed over him as her hot, soft body pressed against his. Jason felt his brain explode. Let me go, he yelled, shoving her away with a sudden burst of strength. He was afraid if this went on any longer, he might actually lose control. Was this woman some kind of natural-born succubus? But you started it, Clara murmured, her eyes glittering, still wanting more. Seeing the smear of her own blood on the corner of his mouth, she felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Had your fill already? The kiss is done. Now you keep your end of the deal, Jason said coldly, quickly wiping his mouth as he saw her staring. He couldn't believe it. He'd wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine, to make her bleed for a change. And she'd gotten off on it? The logic of a lunatic was truly incomprehensible. Don't worry, Clara said with a playful arch of her eyebrow. She glanced toward the door. Prep the car. Mobilize every sterling asset in the city. I want a citywide APB out on Leo Miller. She held out a hand to Jason. Let's go. Her eyes curved into a smile, aristocratic and cold, yet clearly delighted. I'm taking you to kill someone. The words, coupled with her smile, were enough to freeze the blood in your veins. I'm changing, Jason said, turning away. He had no intention of taking the she-devil's hand. He strode toward the walk-in closet. He was still wearing that ridiculous deep V-top with the wolf ears. Showing up to deal with Leo like that would be a joke. After this was over, he was going to make damn sure she had to wear the wolf ears and a V-neck too. An eye for an eye. Clara just nodded. I'll wait for you downstairs. The puppy knew how to groom himself now. He had his pride. She could wait. Ava's jaw nearly hit the floor. The boss was actually waiting for someone. Are you not going to prep the car? Clara's cold gaze snapped to her as she shrugged on a black trench coat. The moment Jason was out of sight, she reverted to her imperious self. Ava shuddered. Clara's eyes had narrowed dangerously, and a regal, murderous aura radiated from her. He had touched her man. Leo Miller had to die. She didn't care about the reasons, or who was right or wrong. She was fiercely protective. Even if Jason had been at fault, as long as he bowed his head to her, she would shield him from anything. Clara clicked down the stairs in her high heels, her stride sharp and purposeful, Ava scrambling to keep up behind her. 10 minutes later, Jason, now changed, came downstairs to a breathtaking scene. In the darkness, the driveway of the Sterling estate was lined with a fleet of several dozen black Maybachs, their engines humming. Beside each car stood a silent, black-suited bodyguard. Clara was leaning against the lead car, her stunning face hidden behind dark sunglasses. Her black trench coat billowed around her, catching the night breeze along with her long, dark hair. Jason's eyes started twitching uncontrollably. Was all this really necessary? Shouldn't a manhunt be a little more discreet? By then, word of the Sterling family's mobilization had already begun to ripple through New York City. In a private room at a midtown hospital, Brooke was listlessly sipping a Shirley Temple from a straw, the sweet drink doing nothing to lift her mood. It only reminded her of Jason. Miss, if I hadn't looked into this myself, were you planning to keep me in the dark forever? Mister. Lee stood before her, his face in its usual stoic, mid-40s mask. He had done his own investigation. His brilliant, promising young charge was doing all this for a pathetic simp like Jason Miller. He's the man Clara Sterling has her eye on. Are you really going to fight her for him? He couldn't understand it. He'd seen the boy. He was handsome, sure, but how had he managed to bewitch both Clara Sterling and his own boss? You need to think about the company, miss. At the end of the month is the bidding for the new project. Mr. G will be attending. I'll arrange a meeting for you. Mr. Lee's weathered face showed a hint of resignation. A man like Mr. G was a match for his boss, not a plaything like Jason. Who says he belongs to Clara? He doesn't even like her. Brooke bit down on her straw, her face tight with a rage she could no longer contain. So what if she's Clara Sterling? She can steal his body, but Jason still won't like her. My things were stolen, and I'm going to steal them back. What she hated most was that word, arranged. For years, she had never had any real freedom. Miss, we have a problem. Mr. Lee was about to say more when a bodyguard burst into the room. News just came in. Jason was attacked at the Sterling estate. He's hurt. Clara is tearing the city apart, looking for the culprit. Hearing Jason's name, Brooke shot upright. Someone hurt him? How is he? Huh? The bodyguard stared at her panicked expression, momentarily confused. Miss, didn't you say you didn't care about him? He'd only come to report it, because he thought she might have been involved. Why was she reacting so strongly to someone she supposedly didn't care about? Brooke's family was a step behind on the news cycle. The report of Jason's injury went out, and they had just started investigating, so they didn't know it was Leo yet. Brooke stammered, her lips moving for a moment without sound. He's my toy. If he's broken, how am I supposed to play with him later? Her cheeks fell hot. She realized she might have overreacted. The bodyguard looked unconvinced. So, do you still want to hear any news about Jason? What do you think? Brooke shot him a glare. What a stupid question. Spit it out. The bodyguard flinched. Just then, his phone buzzed with the results of their inquiry. Miss, we have a name. It was orchestrated by Leo Miller. Before he could finish, Brooke was already out the door. Miss, where are you going? Mr. Lee's composed face finally showed a crack of astonishment. He'd watched her grow up and had never seen her act this way for anyone. A sense of crisis washed over him. If this continued, that Jason boy would be the ruin of her. Stay out of my business. Brooke didn't even look back. Still in her hospital gown, her beautiful eyes were blazing with fury. Leo Miller. He dared to hurt her toy. She was going to kill him. Achoo! Achoo! In another hospital across town, Leo Miller let out a series of violent sneezes. His face was wrapped in so many bandages from his previous beating that he looked like a mummy, but he still felt a chill run down his spine. I wonder if that bastard Jason is dead yet, he muttered, scowling. Not seeing the kid die with his own 2 hands left a bitter taste in his mouth. Just then, the door opened and a man walked in. Leo immediately sat up straighter, his expression respectful. The man held out a phone. Take the call. Leo took the phone, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. You've been exposed. Got to New York now. It's your only chance. The cold, menacing voice on the other and hung up without another word. Leo felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Ping, ping, ping. A news alert flashed across his screen. Clara Sterling launches citywide manhunt, APB issued. He'd screwed up. Now, Clara Sterling was coming to kill him. The hair on his arms stood on end. A series of car horns blared from the street below. He scrambled to the window and looked down to see Clara's signature, Maybach, pulling up to the hospital entrance. Run. He had to run. The thought consumed him. He turned and bolted for the door, not noticing the figure lurking in the stairwell behind him. Brooke Lynn, her eyes gleaming with a cold, controlled fury. Found you. Now, how should I make you die for touching what's mine? 5 minutes later, Jason and Clara stood at the door of the empty hospital room. He's gone. Jason raised an eyebrow. We just got his location. He can't have gone far, Clara said, annoyed. Back to the car. We're going after him. She turned on her heel and strode back to the Maybach, Jason following behind. It was now past 11 at night. New York, the city that never slept, was still alive with traffic and flashing neon. Inside the car, Ava looked troubled. Ma'am, Leo must have switched vehicles. It will take at least 5 minutes to find him. Not necessary, Jason interrupted. He held a hand out to Clara. Give me your phone. I can find him in 3 seconds. Clara let out a small laugh. 3 seconds? My best people need 3 minutes. How are you going to do it? With that puppy nose of yours? Jason's next words wiped the smile from her face. I have his location. He said it so casually, but the expressions on Clara and Ava's faces changed completely. Ava, in particular, stared at him in disbelief. Jason shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. His security is a joke. Planting a bio-tracker on him while he was out cold was easy. Is that so weird? Leo had tried to kill him multiple times. It was self-defense. Ava clearly didn't buy it for a second. Clara, however, looked intrigued. I'm really starting to like you more and more. Her obedient little puppy had a vicious side. She loved that kind of contrast. She handed him her phone. Jason grumbled, the wound in his side still aching. He pulled up the location and tossed the phone to Ava. Clara raised an eyebrow, surprised at his compliance. Looking at the pale cast of his lips, she felt an unfamiliar pang of softness. Does it still hurt? She asked. If he would just bend a little, just agree to give her a child, he wouldn't have to suffer like this. Was being with her really so difficult? Jason just scoffed. What do you think? He was hardly going to be cheerful about it, so he saw no reason to pretend. This time, surprisingly, Clara didn't get angry. Training a new pet required a delicate balance. The little one was genuinely angry now. He'd even bared his teeth at her. She could afford to soothe him a little. Get the first aid kit. I'll change the dressing, Clara said, holding a hand out to Ava. Ava's eyes widened. She passed the kit to her boss, then quickly raised the privacy partition between the front and back seats. The back of the Maybach became a secluded space. What are you doing? Jason asked, instantly on guard. But Clara was already reaching over, gently lifting the fabric of his shirt away from the wound. Staring at the defined lines of his chest, she swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. Clara, for a woman, you are so thirsty, Jason muttered, quickly pulling his shirt back down. A small smile played on Clara's lips. If you were a little more willing, I wouldn't have to be. She leaned closer, her eyebrows raised playfully. If you don't let go, does that mean you want me to kiss you? Since concern and hugs weren't working, she didn't mind taking a step further. I'm letting go. Jason yelped, releasing his shirt and shrinking back into his seat. Clara reached out, her fingers warm as she applied the salve to his wound. In the confined space of the car, Jason's breathing grew heavy. This woman, she actually had a gentle side. Am I being gentle enough? She murmured, misinterpreting his blush as a sign of pain. Jason's lips felt dry. Just as he was about to speak, Ava's startled voice came from the front. Ma'am, I've got him. Leo Miller is just ahead. The partition slid down with a whoosh. Ava froze, staring at the scene. The air hung in a silent, awkward moment. Just as Jason was about to say something, boom! A massive crash echoed from up ahead, like a car exploding. Jason's eyes widened in shock as he whipped his head toward the window. Not far ahead, a red Ferrari had slammed a black sedan into the guardrail of the overpass. The scene was chaos. The sedan's front end was a mangled wreck, thick smoke billowing from the engine, shattered glass littering the pavement. The driver of the Ferrari, a woman, pulled off her helmet, letting a waterfall of long, wavy hair cascade down. It was Brooke. The bridge was a war zone. Traffic had ground to a halt, a cacophony of blaring horns and shouting people. Brooke seemed oblivious, a wild smile on her brilliantly red lips. Gotcha, you little rat, she rasped, her voice low and husky. She swung herself out of the Ferrari, a baseball bat in one hand. Dressed in a pink and white striped hospital gown, she radiated a manic, unhinged energy. A few yards away, Leo Miller, his head bleeding, looked up just in time to see her silhouetted against the chaos. A beautiful, smiling madwoman advancing on him, the baseball bat scraping along the asphalt with a sound like death's own calling card. Help me. Somebody help me. Leo saw the murder in her eyes and began to crawl out of the wreckage, pleading with the crowd. He didn't make it 3 feet before Brooke grabbed a fistful of his hair. So filthy, she said, her nose wrinkling in disgust. She raised the bat high. I believe I warned you. You don't touch what belongs to Brooke. Her voice was a low growl. Since you didn't listen, you could just die. The words hung in the air for a second before the bat came whistling down, connecting with the back of Leo's head with a sickening thud. Splat. Blood spattered across her hospital gown and face. From inside the Maybach, Jason watched, his eyes narrowing. He noticed the details. Brooke's breathing was ragged and shallow. Her hands were trembling. This psycho is having a manic episode, and she's out here like this. The crowd was a sea of smartphones, everyone recording. Someone was on the phone with 911. A murmur went through the onlookers. I know her. Isn't she some actress? An actress is beating someone up in public? Is there no law anymore? Brooke didn't seem to hear any of it, swinging the bat again and again. Jason frowned. If this kept up, she was going to kill Leo in front of dozens of witnesses. He knew the Miller and Sterling families had immense power in the city, but a public murder caught on video would cause a massive scandal. He moved to get out of the car, but the woman beside him was faster. Miss Lynn has such particular tastes. Always enjoys poaching someone else's prey, doesn't she? Clara stepped out of the car, clad in her black trench coat, a cool smile on her lips as she surveyed the scene. After all that chasing, Brooke had intercepted her prize. What was she supposed to tell Jason now? At the sound of her voice, Brooke finally reacted. She looked up, her body spattered with blood, but her gaze went past Clara to Jason, who was just getting out of the car. A light flickered in Brooke's eyes. I caught the one who hurt you. The one Clara failed to catch. Let's see what she has to say about that. Like a child seeking praise, she grabbed Leo by the hair and dragged him, dumping him at Jason's feet. Jason just stared, a muscle twitching in his jaw. So, thank you. Thank you for what? Is she insane? Causing a scene this massive. Did she have any idea what this would do to her career? Thank you. Clara stepped between them, her eyes flashing with cold fire as she saw the two of them exchanging glances. Miss Lynn, I believe you said you weren't interested in my man. Why are you suddenly meddling in our affairs? She narrowed her eyes, a possessive cat guarding its food. Are you declaring war on me? Brooke laughed. Miss Sterling, if Jason really liked you, you wouldn't have to use such cheap tricks to keep him by your side, would you? You can't force love. He had only ever liked her. He'd spent a whole year proving it. Her words struck a nerve, igniting Clara's fury. Is that so? Clara's lips curved into a dangerously beautiful smile. I think you've misunderstood, Miss Lynn. The reason I was late is because Jason and I were busy, playing a little game in the car. She shot a threatening glare at Jason. Weren't we, darling? The air went still. Brooke's triumphant expression faltered, replaced by disbelief. Her face turned beet red. Jason, is she telling the truth? No, don't be shy. Clara cut him off smoothly. You were so brave just a moment ago, weren't you? She casually brushed the hair from her neck, revealing the swollen, red bite mark on her pale skin. It was unmistakably from a man. The fury Brooke had been suppressing erupted. Jason, she seethed, her voice a low growl, her eyes locked on him. Clara was triumphant. Have you never done something like that, Miss Lynn? Would you like us to give you a demonstration? She let her gaze wander over Brooke's blood-spattered hands and tooted. A woman should be gentle. All this. Violence. No one likes that. No one likes violence. Listening to this woman's pathological lies, Jason felt a headache coming on. Are you sure about that? Who was it that held my hand while we killed that maid? Keep it up, lady. Keep up the act. A dark shadow passed over Brooke's eyes. She looked down at her own hands, a sudden wave of despair washing over her. Violence? Was she really wrong? But when the manic episodes hit, she couldn't control it. She didn't want to be like this. Her mind was in turmoil. She didn't notice that Leo Miller, barely conscious, was using the opportunity to crawl away, driven by pure survival instinct. Clara and Brooke finally noticed. Stop, SCRECH. BM. Before Brooke could finish her sentence, a black sedan sped out of nowhere. After another deafening crash, Leo was sent flying several feet, landing in a crumpled heap in a pool of his own blood. Everyone froze. He's dead. Someone killed him. A voice screamed from the crowd, and the scene devolved into pure panic. Jason stared, stunned. He saw the driver of the black sedan jump out and start running. He broke into a sprint, tackling the driver to the ground in a few long strides. Brooke was still in shock. Clara, however, frowned, her sharp eyes catching a man in a black face mask melting back into the crowd. Someone wanted Leo Miller silenced. Realization dawned. She was about to give an order to Ava when the wail of sirens filled the air. Several police cars screeched to a halt. NYPD. Make way. Ma'am, sir, you'll need to come with us. Several officers descended on the scene, addressing Jason, Clara, and Brooke. Even though everyone in New York knew the power of the Sterling and Lynn families, with this many witnesses, they had to follow procedure. Jason looked at the slightly frustrated expressions on Clara's and Brooke's faces and felt an overwhelming urge to laugh. Well, guess the party's over for everyone, he muttered under his breath. He'd actually been looking forward to playing with Leo a little. Now the guy was either dead or going to be in the ICU for the next 100 days. Cooperate, cooperate, Jason said cheerfully, holding his hands out for the cuffs. Officer, I was just a bystander. I can give a statement. Arrest me, please. His eyes were bright with an eagerness that was almost alarming. The cop looked at him, completely bewildered. What was with this guy? Most people were terrified of being taken into custody. This one looked like he'd won the lottery. He had no idea that for Jason, compared to the torture of being with Clara, the precinct was practically heaven. Freedom. Finally, he could escape that woman. Thank you for your cooperation, sir, the officer said, snapping the cuffs on Jason's wrists with a puzzled look. Other officers approached Clara and Brooke. Clara, as if she knew the routine, extended her hands gracefully, not a hint of anger on her face. Old hack, Brooke thought with a sneer. Trying to win Jason over by playing the cool, mysterious type? She tossed her baseball bat aside with a theatrical flourish. An officer glanced at the blood on her hands and instructed his colleagues to escort all three of them into the cruisers. In a sprawling mansion on the Upper East Side, Bianca Sterling had her small, porcelain-white feet propped up on a desk in a room that looked like a futuristic command center. "Miss, there seems to be some trouble involving Miss Sterling," a servant reported from the doorway. Bianca looked up from her ergonomic gaming chair. She had the face of a cherubic doll, framed by brown, curly hair tied into two pigtails. She was wearing a white, lace-collared nightgown. "Oh, it seems the show is about to begin," she said, a dangerous glint in her large, doll-like eyes, enhanced by colored contact lenses. And then there was the man she had her eye on. Keep an eye on her, and have someone run a deep background check on that man. She was just so curious. "Yes, miss." The servant bowed and left. Bianca's gaze returned to the screen. "Brother, Bianca has found you." A smile touched her lips, revealing two small, sharp canine teeth. The expression was both adorable and menacing. This time, she finally had power. He wouldn't be able to escape her again. "It's been 3 years. You must have missed me, right?" she whispered, her small hand clicking the mouse, submitting an application to A-list university. A bloodthirsty light gleamed in her eyes. "Don't worry, brother. We'll see each other again very, very soon." At the precinct. Name, Jason Miller. Sex, is it that hard to tell? Jason fidgeted in the interrogation room, his cuffed hands making him antsy. The interrogations were held in separate rooms. He had no idea what was happening with Clara, but he wanted to get this over with as quickly as possible. If he finished after her, he might have a chance to slip away. "Please cooperate," the detective said, his face hardening. Jason sighed and answered the rest of the questions. Once they confirmed he was just a witness, they led him out of the room. "Am I free to go?" he asked, hope surging. "You'll have to wait," the officer said, still verifying details. He cuffed Jason to a bench in the main waiting area. Jason scanned the room. No sign of Clara or Brooke. They must still be in questioning. He breathed a sigh of relief and settled in to wait. In another room, Brooke was being far less cooperative. "Name, sex. You can Google everything about me, including my height and measurements," Brooke said without even looking up. She was referring to her bust size. The detective's faces darkened. "Please cooperate." Before he could say more, another officer entered and whispered something in his ear. A minute later, Brooke was escorted out. "Miss Lynn, the preliminary report is in. Mr. Miller's injuries were caused by the car crash. If you'll just wait over there for a moment." The detective, who had been scowling at her, was now politely gesturing toward the public seating area. Brooke was annoyed. She had to wait, but then she turned and saw Jason, sitting by himself, and her irritation vanished. "Wait, I can wait an hour," she purred. "Is Clara still being questioned?" "Miss Sterling just finished, but she's speaking with her assistant, so she hasn't come out yet," the officer explained. Brooke's eyes lit up. Clara wasn't out yet? That meant it was just her and Jason. A sly smile spread across her face as she walked toward him. Jason was leaning back, his eyes half closed from pain and exhaustion. Suddenly, he felt a murderous aura approaching. He snapped his eyes open to find a woman's face inches from his. They stared at each other. "Hey, what are you doing?" Jason flinched away from her, his eyes darting around nervously. "No, Clara. Good. Look at you. Scared out of your wits by her." Brooke's tone was laced with jealousy. He'd never reacted so strongly to her. Jason let out a cold laugh. "Miss Lynn, if you're so capable, why don't you just take me from her? Then maybe I wouldn't get hurt so often." He lowered his gaze, refusing to look at her. Blood was starting to seep through the bandage on his abdomen. His voice was distant. This woman had no power to get him out, yet she insisted on provoking Clara. He didn't get it. She said she didn't like him anymore, so why was she so obsessed with her toy? "Are you blaming me?" Brooke looked at him, but surprisingly, she wasn't angry. She knew she didn't have the power to take him from Clara. Not yet. She'd never cared about power before, but in that moment, she desired it with a burning intensity. "She hurt you again?" Her eyes flashed with fury as she saw the blood on his shirt. Jason didn't answer. He was hungry and tired. "Is there anything to eat around here?" he asked, pointedly ignoring Brooke and addressing a nearby officer. He didn't want to say anything else that might give her the wrong idea. But at his question, Brooke's eyes suddenly lit up. "I have some," she said, taking a few boxes of blueberry pie from her assistant. "Beg me, and I'll give you some." "Then I'm suddenly not hungry," Jason said, turning his head away. Brooke's temper flared, but then she caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance, and a gleeful smile spread across her face. "Fine, you don't have to beg," she said, her voice deliberately loud. She took a piece of pie and held it to his lips. "I'll feed you." Jason had no idea what she was playing at, but her threatening glare left him little choice. He opened his mouth. "Where did you get so many blueberry pies?" he mumbled. He remembered she liked them, but she usually only ate one box a day. "Our boss bought out every patisserie in New York. We get daily deliveries now," her assistant explained proudly. Jason's mouth twitched. He saw a faint, unnatural blush on Brooke's cheeks. "If you like it, have some more," she said, her smile cryptic. Behind him, standing just far enough away not to be seen, Clara took in the whole scene. "So he likes blueberry pie, does he?" she thought, her own face a mask of cold fury. "He won't let me feed him, but he'll let Brooklyn feed him. Fine." He was doing great. Clara stared, not even realizing that her eyes were practically shooting flames. An unfamiliar sense of crisis made her clench her fists. That preening peacock, Brooke Lynn, was actually learning to play the gentle, caring role, and from the looks of it, Jason was buying it. But with her, he was always afraid, always on guard. Was she really doing it all wrong? Only Ava, standing beside her, rolled her eyes. The boss's pride was harder than diamonds. Still claiming she didn't like him? This was not liking him. "So, you like spending time with her, do you?" Clara's voice was a low, cold whisper. "Ava, first thing tomorrow morning, leak the news. Jason and I have signed our marriage contract. We are now officially husband and wife." "Ma'am? Are you sure?" Ava swallowed hard. For years, Clara's enemies had been watching her every move. If they put this news out, wasn't she afraid someone would try to bribe or threaten her new husband? "Have you developed a habit of questioning me lately?" A chill entered Clara's eyes. She would give him a name, status, everything he could possibly want. As long as Jason didn't try to run away, she could protect him. As for bribing him, who in New York had more money than Clara Sterling? She wanted everyone in the city, especially Brooke Lynn, to know that Jason Miller was her private property, and no one was going to take him from her. "Understood," Ava murmured, bowing her head. The boss in love, she thought, had completely lost her mind. She used to never pay any attention to men. Now she practically had two extra eyes permanently fixed on Jason, and she still claimed she didn't like him. Jason, meanwhile, was happily eating the blueberry pie when he suddenly felt a prickling on the back of his neck. He instinctively looked over his shoulder and met Clara's icy, smiling gaze. He nearly choked. Seeing the murderous look in her eyes, a cold dread washed over him, and he spat out the mouthful of pie. Tui, Miss Sterling, you're done?" "Huh?" He forced a grimace, cursing himself. Another chance to escape gone. "So you don't like the gourmet food at home, but you enjoy eating the street trash?" Clara said, her cold gaze flicking from him to Brooke. The double meaning was unmistakable. "Who you're calling trash isn't so certain." Brooke shot back, tilting her chin up proudly. "Looks to me like Jason is enjoying it very much. Aren't you?" She looked at Jason expectantly. "No, not at all." Jason denied it instantly, watching Clara's face grow darker by the second. He clutched his stomach and doubled over. "Ow, my wound. I think it's infected. It hurts. I need to go to the hospital." He had to get out of there. The air between the two women was thick with gunpowder. An unknowing bystander would think he was building a bomb. "We're going home," Clara said, her voice flat. She turned and walked away. She could see right through his act, but she didn't call him on it. She also wasn't worried about him following. The million-volt bracelet on his wrist would be less than enough. Sure enough, the moment she turned, Jason scrambled to his feet and followed her without a word. Brooke sat on the bench, her triumphant expression fading as she watched him leave without a backward glance. A hollow feeling spread through her chest. She kept her eyes on his retreating figure until he was gone. He was so obedient to her, but he'd only known Clara for a few days. "Am I really that violent?" she suddenly asked one of her assistants. The man was so stunned he thought he might be hallucinating. His boss was actually concerned that someone thought she was violent? "Mister." Lee had told her 1,000 times over the years to control her temper. Had she ever listened? No. She usually came back even angrier. And now, for Jason, she was questioning herself. He was starting to think his boss was turning into a lovesick teenager. "Tell me, should I be more gentle?" Brooke frowned. The more she thought about Clara's act, the angrier she got. That old hag loved to play games, always strutting around in those sheer black stockings. But she had to admit, as cold as Clara was, she never lost her aristocratic beauty. She was the type of woman any man would fall for. Brooke Lynn would absolutely not lose to that old woman. "Call Kinsey. Tell her to go shopping with me tonight. And give me stockings. Black ones, white ones. 1,000 pairs of each. A faint blush crept up Brooke's cheeks. She refused to believe it. She was younger than Clara, and her body was just as good. Black stockings, huh? If Clara could wear them, so could she. And acting gentle? Anyone could do that. Inside the Maybach, Jason kept his eyes shut, pretending to be asleep. The woman next to him was radiating an Arctic chill. He had no desire to open them. Clara glanced at him out of the corner of her eye. She knew he was faking, but didn't say anything. Instead, she elegantly crossed her long, stocking-clad legs, resting them on his lap. The space was a bit tight, after all. A little skin contact was perfectly normal, right? Jason's face turned red, but he endured her provocation until the Maybach finally stopped. He thought he'd played his part well. But then, her mocking voice cut through the silence. Are you planning to stay like that until morning? I had the chef make dinner. Aren't you going to eat? I am eating. Jason's eyes flew open. He couldn't hide it anymore. He'd only had one meal all day. It was the middle of the night. Anyone would think he was training to be a monk. Not even a man of steel could take it. Done with your nap? Clara's eyes were cold, but tinged with amusement. Get out. And don't forget, I still have to pour your tea and apologize. She never went back on her word. Even if he forgot, she wouldn't. Is this for real? Jason couldn't quite believe it. She was actually going to go through with it. The car was parked in front of the Sterling estate. As Clara got out, he had no choice but to reluctantly follow her back into his cage. Just as she'd said, a fresh meal was laid out on the dining room table, a spread so exquisite it made his mouth water. The only difference was that the group of cheerful maids had been replaced by masked, expressionless male bodyguards. Jason waved a hand in front of one of them. No reaction. Are they blind? He asked, taking a seat at the table. Ava let out an involuntary snort of laughter. Even Clara's rigid expression softened slightly. You want to find out? Why don't you try a knife and see? Psycho, Jason thought again. This woman was not normal. Clara didn't notice his expression. She sat across from him, watching him eat, her eyes narrowed lazily. Well, how would you like me to pour your tea and apologize? She'd already figured out how to punish him for the little show he'd put on with Brooke. But since she'd made a promise, she wouldn't let him think she was someone who went back on her word. They could deal with the apology first. His punishment could wait. Jason's eyes lit up with a mischievous glint. Really? I can ask for anything. In that case, he wasn't going to hold back. Jason's gaze slowly drifted down, landing on the sheer black stockings encasing Clara's long, perfect legs. Can I see your stockings? Clara froze, not sure she'd heard him correctly. What did you say? But Jason's eyes were still locked on her legs. You heard me, he said with a raised eyebrow. Miss Sterling said she'd do anything. Surely you can grant me this one small wish. You? Clara's face flushed a deep crimson. Seeing the intense look in his eyes, she bit her lip, and her gaze flickered down to his lap. He'd said he wanted to wait a month before they did that. But if he wanted to, now, she would certainly be willing. Yes. Right now, Jason nodded. Why wait until tomorrow for a pair of stockings? Clara's face grew even redder. Fine. All of you leave us. After a sharp cough, she waited for Ava and the bodyguards to exit the dining room before she stood up. Awkwardly, she did as he asked. Are we going to? In the kitchen, she asked, her voice breathy as she walked toward him, her gaze smoldering. This little guy was more aggressive than she thought. Was he suggesting a little kitchen tryst? A strange thrill of anticipation shot through her. Then, maybe we shouldn't use one of those, Clara whispered, biting her lip as she approached, her eyes cast down shyly. In the next second, to her utter shock, Jason took the stockings without even glancing at her. Wow, this material is pretty tough, huh? He said, stretching the fabric with genuine interest. The quality was excellent. Of course it was Clara's. Must have cost a fortune. He'd been eyeing them for a while. This would be perfect for catching fish. His old fishing net had torn last time. This material was great. If he could fashion a bigger, reinforced net out of this stuff, it would work like a charm. The guys from his fishing club back at the dorm would go nuts. Clara's smile twitched violently. Catching fish. He'd made her take off her stockings. To use them as a fishing net? What else did you think it was for, Miss Sterling? Jason looked up and saw that Clara had already taken off her jacket. His own smile twitched. Was this woman's mind a one-track gutter? Now you have the stockings. What else? Clara gritted her teeth, her face burning as she sat back down. If she hadn't already agreed, she would have thrown him on the bed right then and there. There was a price for teasing her. All right, the tea and apology, Jason said, stuffing the stockings into his pocket. And put these on with a deep V-neck when you do it. He handed her back the wolf ears she had originally given him. Payback had finally arrived. Fine. Clara nearly ground her back teeth to dust. With a dark expression, She turned and went back to her room. A few moments later, the click-clack of heels announced her return. Jason, who had been picking at his food, looked up. Clara was wearing a tight, black deep V dress that hugged her curves, accentuating her tiny waist and showing off her impossibly long, pale legs. Above the plunging neckline, a pair of fluffy, proud wolf ears sat nestled in her long, dark hair. The effect on her stunningly beautiful face was surprisingly seamless. Jason froze, swallowing hard. He could feel a warmth spreading from his nose. This woman really was a succubus. "I'm sorry. I was wrong about you." Clara's voice was barely a whisper, her face a mask of cold pride, tinged with red. Her hands were clenched into tight fists at her sides. "Ahem. Couldn't quite hear you. A little louder." Jason couldn't suppress his grin. Seeing this proud, arrogant woman apologize to him. It was glorious. So, Claire Sterling had moments like this, too? "Jason, don't push it." A murderous glint flashed in her eyes. She picked up the teapot, poured him a cup, and held it out. "Drink." Jason looked at the cup, but didn't take it. "You know, my leg is feeling a little sore." He stretched one leg out in front of her. It wasn't often he got a chance to turn the tables on her. He wasn't going to let her off that easy. "Jason." Clara's temple throbbed, her voice turning sharp. Jason was unmoved. "Miss Sterling, you give me a little massage, and we'll call it even for the whipping and the stabbing from the past 2 days. You need to think about it. If there's a rift between husband and wife, we won't be able to cooperate effectively in the future." He'd been whipped for no reason and suffered all sorts of false accusations. Was a cup of tea and a mumbled apology supposed to fix everything? At the words husband and wife, a flicker of something moved in Clara's eyes. A few seconds later, Jason, who had been leaning back with his eyes half closed, felt a pair of small, soft hands on his leg. Clara was kneeling, her head bowed, her face as red as a beet. She began to massage his leg. Jason's eyes flew open in surprise. From this angle, the kneeling Clara looked surprisingly docile, almost shy. He couldn't believe it. He'd just been bluffing, and she'd actually agreed. "Is this okay?" she asked, her voice stiff, her cheeks burning. It wasn't that she'd lost her temper. It was that during her interrogation, Ava had given her the full report. The person behind Leo Miller was from the Sterling family. She had promised him he wouldn't be harmed in her house. She would deal with her family members, every last one of them. But she felt she owed Jason a genuine apology. Besides, if that woman Brooke could pretend to be gentle, why couldn't she? "Perfect," Jason said, a look of pure bliss on his face. But the moment the word left his lips, her hands withdrew. Apology rendered. "Now, let's talk about our problems." Like an actress changing masks, Clara's cold, arrogant expression returned. A dark line appeared on Jason's forehead. He should have waited longer before saying anything. "About your request to go back to school," Clara began coolly. "I've approved it." Jason's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Of course," Clara said with a cold smile. She'd already told Ava to announce their marital status tomorrow. Brooke, with her temper, would surely cause a scene. Jason would only grow to hate her more. And Bianca had just messaged her today, saying she was enrolling at A-list university. She could have Bianca keep an eye on him for her. Jason looked at her smile and had a bad feeling. "Now," the woman across from him continued, "can we go to bed?" She opened her arms to him, her eyes half closed in a look he couldn't decipher. "Carry me to the bedroom." Jason frowned, cast one last longing look at the delicious food on the table, then scooped Clara into his arms and headed for the bedroom. Money was hard to earn, and life was tough. "Time to get back to work. Just to be clear, we can sleep in the same bed, but no touching," he said as he walked. Clara completely ignored him. The moment they were on the bed, she snuggled into his arms, resting her head on his bicep and wrapping her hands tightly around him. "I thought we agreed on no touching," Jason said, his face dark. The woman covered his mouth with her hand. "Shut up and go to sleep. You don't make the rules." She didn't know why, but only when she was holding him, breathing in his scent, could she get a decent night's sleep. At the Lynn family mansion. "Are you serious?" "Jason is going back to school tomorrow." Brooke, who had been lounging on the sofa, shot upright. "Yes, ma'am." The news came from an internal source at the Sterling household. A bodyguard confirmed. He couldn't understand why his boss was reacting so strongly. Brooke ignored him. "The 1,000 pairs of black stockings and 1,000 pairs of white stockings I ordered. Have they arrived yet?" Her eyes were sparkling. 1,000 pairs? Kinsey, sitting nearby, stared at her dumbfounded. 1,000? Is she planning to hang herself with them? Even if you like something, you didn't need to buy that many. Besides, she remembered Brooke used to hate this kind of stuff, calling it a green tea move. "They've been delivered to the walk-in closet, ma'am. 1,000 different styles, the bodyguard replied. Brooke looked pleased. Ignoring Kinsey's shocked expression, she grabbed her friend's hand and pulled her toward the closet. Kinsey, you have good taste. Help me pick a pair, and then a gentle-looking dress to go with it. Kinsey frowned, confused. Brooke, what are you doing? Why the sudden wardrobe change, just because Jason was going back to school? Brooke, however, was lost in her own world. She had never worn anything like this before. It was like discovering a whole new universe. Looking at her own long, shapely legs in a mirror, she couldn't help but blush. When Jason saw her at school tomorrow, he would definitely know that she was way more beautiful than that old hag Clara. Seeing her expression, Kinsey felt a sudden sense of crisis. Brooke, you haven't fallen for Jason, have you? She asked nervously. If Brooke was serious about Jason, then where did that leave her? What are you talking about? How could I possibly like him? Brooke reacted as if she'd been electrocuted, her face turning an even deeper shade of red. I'm just changing my style. Is that a crime? It wasn't for him. She just didn't want to lose to Clara, that's all. But her over-the-top reaction was a dead giveaway. As her best friend, Kinsey could see it clear as day. Brooke had genuinely fallen for him. Then don't wear those. Kinsey's face went pale. She grabbed a pair of rather plain white stockings. Those aren't very nice. Wear these instead. These? They look a little tacky, don't they? Brooke frowned. Kinsey quickly backpedaled. Men and women have different taste. This is the type of thing men like. I told you this isn't for him. Brooke blushed again. Well, fine, I'll wear these then. Kinsey let out a silent sigh of relief. The pair Brooke had picked out was too stunning. She was afraid Jason wouldn't be able to resist. This pair was just tacky enough. Even though she felt a little guilty for deceiving her friend, Kinsey quietly took out her phone and sent a text to Jason. Jason, I heard you're coming back to school. Why didn't you tell me? She waited a second, then deleted it and wrote a new one. Brooke told me you were hurt. Is it serious? Do you need me to come and bandage it for you tomorrow? The next morning, Jason woke up to find the woman beside him already gone. He got dressed, and Sprite's voice chimed from the chip in his ear. Jason, Kinsey sent you 2 messages last night. She deleted one. The other one asks if you need her to bandage your wounds. She's asking me? Jason frowned. The Luo family was a medical dynasty in New York. People waited in line for a year and still couldn't get an appointment with them. Was Kinsey really that free? Yeah. Do you think she likes you? Sprite sounded certain. She felt she had a keen sense for these things. Jason laughed. Likes me? What's it like? Does she know I'm the CEO of G Corp? Don't be ridiculous. He'd only met Kinsey a few times. If she hadn't come to treat him, he would have already forgotten what she looked like. Knock, knock. Sir, Miss Sterling is waiting for you downstairs. Coming, Jason called out. He finished dressing and headed downstairs. When he got to the bottom, he saw Clara already standing by the front door. Let's go, she said, turning and walking outside. I'm taking you to school. You're taking me? Jason's eyes widened. She was personally driving him? What kind of scheme was this woman hatching now? But Clara was already in the car, so he had no choice but to follow. Sandwich. Breakfast, she said coolly inside the car, handing him a container. Jason was a little surprised. He thought he'd be going hungry again today. Thanks. He took it and started eating. Soon, the Maybach pulled up to the entrance of A-list university. As he ate, Jason kept a close watch on her, ready for any sudden moves. The moment they arrived, he spoke up. You can stop here. I'm here. Stop the car, Clara commanded. Jason quickly got out and was about to walk away when her voice stopped him. If you dare to run this time, I will actually break your legs. Be a good boy. Understand. A dangerous smile flickered in her eyes. I'll pick you up tonight. It was like being targeted by a viper. Jason knew instantly that this woman was up to something. She wouldn't just let him go to school this easily. A new backpack for you, Clara said, handing over a brand new designer bag. Jason took it and walked away without looking back. After he was gone, the aristocratic smile on Clara's lips hardened into a cold line. Keep an eye on him, and the news I told you to release. Rest assured, ma'am, by this afternoon, the news of your contract marriage with Jason will be all over the city, Ava replied. She didn't know why her boss insisted on leaking the news in the afternoon. With the Sterling family's power, they could have spread it across the city in under an hour. Good. Now, let's see how Brooklyn walks into her own trap, Clara said, a satisfied smile on her stunning face. Getting that boy to forget Brooke on his own was probably impossible. But if Brooke found out she and Jason were officially a couple, she would likely go insane. And when she went insane, she hurt people. Would Jason still like her then? Her plan was to dismantle and sabotage their relationship. She refused to believe that if she treated Jason just a little better, he wouldn't see who was superior when compared to Brooke's explosive temper. On the A-list university campus, Jason slung the new backpack over one shoulder and ate his sandwich. Having just stepped out of Maybach, he was already the center of attention, but he paid it no mind. His thoughts were consumed with one question. What was that woman's real plan? Jason, a high-pitched, deliberately sweet voice called out from behind him. A shudder ran down his spine, and goosebumps broke out on his arms. Be Brooke Lynn. He turned around in shock. There she was wearing a beige, modest dress. Her wavy hair had been straightened, and she was looking at him with a bashful, almost coy expression. Her stunning, vibrant face, stripped of its usual red lipstick and heavy makeup, looked pure and captivating. The only thing that hadn't changed was the arrogant tilt of her chin. The modest dress barely contained her voluptuous figure, which was perched atop a pair of tacky, mismatched white stockings adorned with pearl butterflies and cartoon characters. If it weren't for her incredible figure, those stockings alone would have been a crime against fashion. What were you wearing? Jason almost dropped his sandwich. Despite the atrocious stockings, she was still beautiful, exuding a different kind of shy charm. For a split second, he was disoriented, thinking he was seeing Vivian. Passers-by were staring. Hey, isn't that Brooke Lynn? Wow, she changed her style. That gentle white stocking look is so pure, so pretty. But why is she standing next to that simp Jason? A group of male students muttered, watching the goddess of their dreams. Jason's eye twitched. Excuse me? Do you guys have a warped definition of gentle white stockings? If it weren't for Brooke's face, he would have run for the hills. I felt like wearing it. What's it to you? Brooke basked in the compliments, tossing her head proudly. So, who's prettier, me or Clara? She stared at Jason, her eyes shining. Jason's smile was strained. He looked her up and down, his expression unreadable. It was hard to say. She didn't look like a normal person. Dare to say I'm not pretty and I'll strangle you, Brooke added, her smile widening as a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. She'd spent all night picking this outfit, and Kinsey had said it was perfect. If he dared to say otherwise, he was just being difficult. Wow, so beautiful. Wow, you're 1,000 times prettier than Clara, Jason said, his performance stiff and awkward. But even as he said the words, his eyes refused to look at her legs. His own eyes were suffering today. The air fell silent. Brooke, however, was completely oblivious to his terrible acting. She tried to suppress a smile, letting out a small, satisfied huff. That old hag, she thought. How could she compare? The group of male students was floored. Was their campus queen really this easy to fool? How come when they tried to give her love letters, she nearly brained them with a wine glass? Weirdo, Jason muttered under his breath, walking away as fast as he could. This woman, suddenly wearing a dress and straightening her hair. Something was definitely wrong. Besides, Clara had spies everywhere. He had no idea who might be watching. It was better to keep up appearances. Jason, why are you walking so fast? Brooke called out, annoyed. Get your ass back here. At that, the male students collectively sighed in relief. Phew, that's more like it. That's the real Brooke Lynn. Brooke realized her slip and quickly covered her mouth. She'd blown her cover. Jason walked even faster. Brooke gritted her teeth, forcing her anger down. Jason, meet me in the cafeteria at lunch. You're getting my food. I have something for you. She couldn't lose her temper. She had to stay calm. If that old hag could pretend to be gentle, she had to as well. She could not lose. But Jason was still ignoring her. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Jason, if I don't see you at lunch, don't be surprised if your dorm room explodes. Her eyes turned cold, her voice low and full of menace. Jason finally stopped. I got it. Now that's the normal Brooke Lynn. As long as she didn't go completely crazy, what was the big deal? It's not like she ever actually ate the food he got for her anyway. It was always a waste. Getting the answer she wanted, Brooke left satisfied. She knew it. Jason would never be able to refuse her. That old woman couldn't compare. Jason, meanwhile, went straight to his classroom. Hey, did you hear? Leo Miller is in a coma. What happened? I heard he pissed off Brooke Lynn. Got beaten up real bad. As he walked in, he overheard several students gossiping. Shoo, stop talking. I heard it was because of Jason. Leo's father probably won't let him off the hook. Man, why would Brooke Lynn stick her neck out for a simp like Jason? The students saw him enter and pretended to stop talking, though they continued to whisper and shoot him strange looks. Jason acted as if he hadn't heard a thing. A coma? Lucky him for not being dead. Robert Miller wouldn't let him off? He was practically hoping Robert would come looking for him. His hands were itching for a fight. Everyone quiet down. Just then, a female professor walked into the classroom, and the room fell silent. Jason looked up. Class, today we have a new transfer student. Miss Sterling, you may come in. The professor's stern expression melted into a brilliant smile as she looked toward the classroom door. Instantly, every student's curiosity was piqued. All eyes turned to the entrance. Jason frowned. Sterling? Why did that sound so familiar? In the next moment, a delicate, graceful figure stepped through the doorway. Jason's eyes went wide. It couldn't be. It was really her. Hello, everyone. My name is Bianca Sterling. I'm 18 years old. I look forward to getting to know you all. On the stage stood a girl as exquisite and beautiful as a porcelain doll. She was wearing a white Lolita-style dress and gave the class a sweet, charming smile. Her large, sparkling eyes seemed to speak, and when she smiled, they curved into crescents on her small, delicate face. Her skin was so pale, it was almost translucent. Standing at about 5'3", she had a petite but curvy figure. Her light brown, curly hair was tied in 2 pigtails, a look so sweet it could give you a cavity. The entire class stared, mesmerized. Was this a real person and not a life-size doll? People like this only existed in dreams. But Jason was frozen in his seat, the hair on his arms standing on end. He watched as Bianca Sterling's eyes curved into a smile, her gaze landing directly on him. Hello, brother. We meet again. Her words fell into a dead silent room. Everyone stared, first at her, then in shock at Jason. The new transfer student, a girl who could easily become the new campus goddess, knew Jason and called him brother. For some, their dreams were shattered before they'd even begun. What did that damn simp Jason have that they didn't? Jason, however, was staring back at Bianca, his face pale. A chill crawled up his spine as dark, bloody images from 3 years ago flashed through his mind. How could you be here? At this school? What were the chances? Brother, aren't you happy to see me? Bianca flashed her sweet little canine teeth, but a dark shadow passed through her eyes. Her voice, though girlish and sweet, sent a shiver down his spine. 3 years ago, she had smiled just like that before pushing a girl who had confessed her feelings to him down a flight of stairs. The fall hadn't been far, and the girl had only ended up with a few scrapes, but the incident had been enough to terrify him. The story had been more complicated. The girl had been playing a prank on Jason as part of a bet. Bianca, fiercely protective and not understanding the nuance, had lashed out. It's okay. Brother must just be overwhelmed with joy, right? Ignoring the stunned looks from everyone, she stepped down from the platform and walked directly to Jason's side. Brother, can I sit here? Bianca pointed to the empty seat next to him, tilting her head with a sweet smile. No, yes. Of course you can. Before Jason could refuse, the student on his other side was nodding vigorously, cutting him off. Who asked you? Jason shot him a glare, but Bianca didn't give him another chance to object. Thank you, brother, she said, sliding into the seat beside him. Jason's expression was a mixture of coldness and complexity. Bianca, I thought your family was struggling. How can you afford to come to school here? And your health? Have you been okay these past few years? He glanced at the pink hue of her irises, hidden beneath colored contacts. 3 years ago, his uncle had set him up. To lay low, he had enrolled in a rural high school. That's where he first met Bianca, a small, skinny girl, ostracized for her albinism, her white hair and pale eyes marking her as an omen of bad luck in the superstitious small town. He had seen a group of kids chasing and throwing rocks at her. Unable to stand by, he had stepped in, becoming her first and only friend. He never expected that her possessiveness would become so extreme that she would nearly kill a girl over a simple confession. Brother, you remember. Bianca's heart clenched. I'm much better now. I got into this school with my grades. Am I smart? Her smile was frozen on her lips, and her eyes began to well up. She thought he had forgotten all about her. 3 years ago, he had appeared in her world like a beam of light in a dream. He told her that if you want something, you have to fight for it. She remembered, but when she had fought for him, he had abandoned her, disappearing from her world. He had lied to her. After he left, she had used her own fierce intelligence to become the star of the Sterling family in less than a year. She was sent abroad to study, and she lost all track of him. All she had was a name. It was only later that she realized she might have scared him away. This time, she would be careful. She would hide her true nature, so her brother wouldn't find out so quickly. Really? Jason was skeptical. Bianca's smile was harmless. Of course, but you have to make it up to me for leaving me back then. When she said make it up, a bloodthirsty glint flashed in her eyes. Jason didn't see it. He relaxed slightly. He had left for other reasons back then. As for Bianca, she had been so young, and with all the bullying she endured, it was normal for her to have some psychological issues. It was hard not to feel sorry for the poor girl. If she had gotten better, he was happy for her. As for making it up to her, don't worry. Your brother has money now. Whatever you want to eat, we'll go to the cafeteria later. My treat. Or, if you want a gift, I can get you anything you want. He patted his chest, completely forgetting his promise to get lunch for Brooklyn. That pampered princess wasn't going to miss one meal. She never showed up anyway. Bianca, on the other hand, could probably use it. Thank you, brother. Bianca's eyes shone. She affectionately linked her arm with his, her large eyes fixed on him as if she couldn't get enough. She stared at him for the entire 45-minute class. Jason felt increasingly uncomfortable. The other students, and even the professor, looked on bewildered. Was there something wrong with the new girl? Why was she staring at a guy like that? Meanwhile, in a sophomore lecture hall, Brooklyn sat in the back row, her white-stockinged legs crossed, a smug, satisfied look on her face. Every so often, she would let out a small scoff. Huh, I knew it. She knew she would look better in white stockings than that old hag. Jason hadn't even dared to look at her today. He was obviously shy. Honestly, he wants to look so badly, but his body won't admit it. She pursed her lips and touched her newly straightened hair, pleased. It's not like she wouldn't let him look. But really, all it took was a little trick, a pair of white stockings, and he couldn't control himself. He really did love her most. The entire class, including the professor, was staring at her as if they'd seen a ghost. Brooklyn was actually in class, and the queen of vibrant, flashy fashion was wearing a white dress and white stockings. Had they all gone mad? Or had she? Brooke was oblivious to their stares. Miss, the car keys and property deeds you requested are here. Just then, several bodyguards walked into the classroom as if they owned the place, carrying a large duffel bag and a massive ring of car keys. Brooke snapped out of her daydream, her smile fading into a slightly embarrassed expression. She looked at the items. Good. Carry it all. We'll take it to the cafeteria later and give it to Jason. She took the keys, satisfied. Who? Miss, who did you say we're giving this to? The bodyguard was so shocked he thought he'd misheard. Jason, are we giving it to him or to you? Brooke shot him an impatient look. She thought for a moment, then placed the giant ring of keys on her white-stockinged leg, took a picture, and sent it to a contact she hadn't used in ages, Clara Sterling. She added a caption, "Your black stockings are just okay, I guess." Kinsey, sitting next to her, watched this all unfold, her hands tightening into fists. Brooke, why are you being so forward all of a sudden? Kinsey couldn't help but ask. I don't think men like women who are too aggressive. You should be more reserved, so you don't seem cheap. If she was this forward, and Jason couldn't resist, what if they got back together? For some reason, she really didn't want Jason and Brooke to get back together. They were completely wrong for each other. Brooke's eyes narrowed. Kinsey? You used to always tell me to be nicer to Jason. Why the sudden change of heart? Her beautiful eyes glinted with suspicion. You haven't actually fallen for Jason, have you?